Mm. Hello, 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 everyone. Hello, magical people. Oh, I'm pleased to be here. I am pleased to be here. Pleased to be here. Just sharing and giving everyone space to catch up. It's a little slow on the internet today. Oh, I'm not even seeing that yet. Very slow. Wow. Beyond tardy. Beyond tardy. All right, let's go back up here. Oh, brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. I heard the ding dong on Zoom. Yes. Happy sound. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Beena just connecting. So perfect timing. Wonderful. Did I see
Hello.
Ramsey's name there somewhere? Hello, Beena. Please say something while I share and get everything.
Yes, so the first thing, I'm just coming back again. My network is not working properly, but at least it is working enough that I can be here and of course
Yes.
enjoy this reading again with discernment, capital R reading, which we are going to do again as usual now. And this is again. I'm just going to make the obvious really obvious for myself. That every single day, I'm just feeling excited about that. Okay, what I'm going to learn today, what I'm going to
Yes.
get out of this, and this is so brilliant. The other thing is, yesterday we shared a lot of kind of new perspective on quite a few things which were really interesting for me, and I had an experience which I was you asked me to share, and but I learned more today about that. So yesterday,
Oh.
some situation I was involved in, not willingly, but this just situation happened, and I was in a situation where I have to make some decision and state my boundaries, not only for myself but in future for others also. And there is a point in your life when you learned at least enough that you don't only think about yourself but you preempt for the future also, of course for others. And that was the situation I learned yesterday, that how to actually do that. So there was a situation where I have to make something clear without being rude, without being awkward. And when I did that,
Oh, without being, what did you say before? Awkward?
without being rude
Oh,
or
rude. Ah, yeah.
yes, yes. And then there is a very fine line between where you have to be adamant and
Yes.
you can be rude. And I just found that balance with the help, of course. Um, I just mentioned that, and it was okay. Surprisingly, it was okay, and it was appreciated by others who were involved in that situation. But what I actually learned was, when we feel awkward with our own perspective, with our own boundaries, then we actually reflect it on others. And because
Repeat
I
that,
was,
please. Repeat that, please.
when we
When we,
feel awkward with our own perspectives and our own boundaries, we reflect it on others. And of course, it's a very strong cueing, so people react and act
yes,
accordingly.
yes. Beena, if you can try your video on, please, because now it just shows me all the time while you're talking.
Oh, yes, I cannot do right now. So,
Oh, okay.
yes.
All right. Never mind.
So that situation was quite an insightful experience for me. It could be a stressful situation, but it becomes an insightful experience for me. So that was really huge. Anyway, when I said that, when I just declare or state my boundaries without being awkward, without being rude, and just using a fine and utilizing the fine balance between that, just being adamant about that, it was truly appreciated, and I got so much value out of it.
Yes.
Sometimes when in the past I was really struggling with this idea that people used to, like in just children's play, my cousins, my siblings, my friends, they used to push me and when you push them back, start crying, and then they go to their parents or your siblings, and they just make complaints about you that, okay, oh, so she pushed me back. My struggle was that I was not able to understand that when they actually just make the books even by pushing me back or saying things, why they were making complaints. And that struggle going on throughout my life till a couple of years ago. Then I realized that not everyone has same discernment. Not everybody has same sensibility. Not everybody is going to act accordingly. So it's all up to me how I'm going to cue other people and how I'm going to feel about myself. Because at that time I was not confident enough. Sorry, you're mute, Sil. Sorry, say it again.
Take Q. What do you
Yes.
mean?
Yes, because my inner struggle, my uncomfortableness with my own perspective, with my own emotions, with my own energy, with my own awareness, actually communicating big time without me being aware of it. And then people understand that. And then they start reflecting that same exact energy which I have inside me. And I never understand this idea that, okay, whatever you are thinking about others, okay, it's you, because why we think about others, because they communicate, the way they communicate, the way they reflect. This is how we understand, oh, this is a mean person, this is a good person, this is a bad person, this is this. It's all coming from our own projection. And this is something I have learned later on, that okay, how these things actually work. So yesterday's experience was quite an insightful experience for me, and it just becomes a validation of that you need to be comfortable with your own beingness first.
Yes. And would you say that that projection affects others as well?
Exactly, definitely.
I mean, and not just your perception of them,
No.
but their actual behavior is some way influenced and affected by your projection. Yes.
Yes, yes.
Very interesting.
And we
Very
all
interesting.
experience that on a regular basis. But
Yeah.
there are very few moments when you actually grasp the core of it, the real true understanding of it, that how these things happen. And
Mm.
mostly what happens in some positive experiences for you. Like yesterday's experience, it was positive. The outcome, the result, or the resolution was positive for me. In those moments, I was receptive because I was getting all the positive things. When things are not so uncomfortable, it becomes difficult for us to be receptive towards
Yes.
any awareness and towards any understanding or insight,
Wow.
because struggle with the resolution. And then, of course, it creates friction, it creates resistance. But when the resolution or the outcome or the solution is positive for us, in those moments we can be like more receptive, and then we can actually grasp the idea. So yesterday's experience was positive for me, and I was
Wonderful.
completely receptive to it.
Wonderful. All right. Well, I want to ask you something, a big deal here in a moment. I just want to say good morning to
Good
Norma.
morning. Oh
Good
yes, he's here.
morning, Norma. She's here. And she says, Ramsey, I assume, says, sorry, you can't come. That's all right, Ramsey. That's all right. I have something to share with Ramsey when he does come again. There's no obligation. There's no pressure here, and no expectation. So come when you can. When you can't, all good, all good. I love that you're here, Norma. I love that you're here. That gives me comfort when you come. So it's a big deal. Big deal that you're here. Now, to get back to Beena here. Beena, everything that you said, yesterday's experience, what specifically was it that connected to you? In other words, I'm really asking you to simply
Okay, yeah. So
repeat again everything that you said, but with that focus again. I want to hear it again. And also I'm asking this, sorry, Bina, I know I asked and then I continued. I'm also asking to share what we do on a regular basis, right? Mostly when people come on a live, they treat it as a presentation, as a show, as a webinar. This is not what this is. This is sharing. This is a space where we can do what, other places wouldn't do. Like, for instance, repeat the thing that's just been said, right? If you're doing a show or a webinar, well, that's kind of like not considered the best methodology or whatever. Like if you're on TV, you'd never do that, right? You'd never do
yes.
something that's awkward or whatever. No, we do that. Right? We're not concerned with any of that nonsense. We're here to learn.
Hmm.
We're here to change. We're here to practice. We're here to implement, to apply. Yes, that's what we're here for.
Yes.
We're here to
Yes.
make space, shift the paradigms, do things differently. Or we're here for 101 reasons. None of them are the usual reasons.
Yes.
So please share everything again, and particularly what about yesterday? What specifically? Because when you say yesterday, I'm not sure what you're referring to. So you're going to have to clarify that for
Okay.
me
Okay. So
or for
yes,
us. Yeah.
yes, I understand your point, and again, it is the emphasis is necessary
Mm,
to understand what for me again, I'm just getting value when I'm repeating and when I'm sharing with you.
yeah.
So yesterday I was in conversation with some people, with some friends, and suddenly my relationship was in a very peculiar way because it is professional, but
Mm,
it is also friendship involved into that. But I always maintain some boundaries very clearly in my life.
yes. Good.
And
Good.
so
Good.
yesterday,
Good.
one the other person, because there were more than two people involved into this, so
Mm.
one person just
Person two or
Yes,
person one?
yes, yeah, yes. Okay, well, I was
Yeah.
the person one. Okay, you can say that. And the person two, we were in communication, and the person three, just use that, or it was just by default for them. It might not be just it was a regular thing.
Mm.
So they just make it a bit more personal,
Yeah.
and and it was like taking advantage of having a personal connectivity with someone,
Ah. Ah.
so which might not be considered as bad or negative, but when the third person involves me into that, like just asking that, okay, yes, I'm just saying on behalf of Beena. So one
Oh,
person,
wow, wow. So they were being presumptuous, in other words.
yes, yes.
Oh, oh, well,
and
that's
and
no damn good. That's
so
no
for
good.
me personally, it was inappropriate at the first point when they were saying from their own behalf, like, okay, yes, okay, this is what I'm saying. But when they
Mm.
actually, without asking for permission, without a consent, they just involve me into that and just pull me into the
Wow,
situation.
wow, 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 wow. So, sorry, I'm going to do a repeat back
Yes,
here for my own clarity.
yes,
So,
yes,
this person three said something to person two, which was in the first place somewhat presumptuous. But then
yes,
they said, well, I'm assuming they said me and Bina, blah, blah. Yeah, but it's kind of
yes,
like, and it's like, wow, now you are, there's a multi-layeredness, right? So person three was being not only presumptuous on their own accord, but pulling you into this presumption and making out as if this is something you guys had discussed or whatever, and making you complicit in that
yes,
presumption
yes,
without your permission, consent, agreement, acknowledgement, awareness.
exactly,
In other
exactly,
words, they were manipulating and leveraging your goodness, your who-ness, your everything about you, right? So
yes,
I'm simply laying this out because yes, in the in the psychology of the superior paradigm and in the book and everything, right? Or books plural,
Yes.
on that and the course. This is a very particular thing that BMNs do. Now, I doesn't sound like this person is not most necessarily a BMN, may just
Yes.
have been a sort of, but nonetheless, it's that little tiny thing that at least it's a red flag to start with until you know more, right? It's a
Yes.
caution because that's a presumption. Now, I know people that are just a bit timid and shy, and they, well, not shy, but and they don't want to say it of their own, so they want a bit of support because it's something important for them to say, and they just want that support. So they're just looking for a bit of help. So they're not necessarily very consciously doing this as a manipulation, or it could be. So either way, this is a big alert. All right,
Yes.
all right, all right, all right.
Yes.
This
Yes.
is huge. This is huge. This is huge.
But
Okay.
also this could be because that some people just being in that environment where everybody or most of the people are like that, like into the superiority paradigm or BMNs or manipulation. So these things become norms for them. And so just involving someone without asking, without their consent, it's become
Yeah,
a huge like a normal thing. Oh yes, we are just friends, so we are doing this
yeah,
because they are so used to with these type of bullying or
yeah.
yemenness or manipulation in those.
Coercion.
Exactly,
Yeah, yeah,
exactly.
yeah, yeah. It's very subtle. It's very subtle coercion, but it's coercion
Yes,
nonetheless. Yes, yes. Now, sorry.
exactly.
Before you go any further, I'm making every effort to hear everything you say here because it's very important to me. Right, and I want to really, implement this and practice this.
Yes.
Is part of why yesterday was a big deal, or whenever this happened. Well, I think this happened before yesterday, but yesterday something else happened about this that came before. Yes.
Yes.
Now, can I assume, yeah, that this is a big deal because you noticed it in this level of detail that we just discussed?
Not at that moment. At that
Oh,
moment,
oh, oh.
it was a sudden awareness that this is something invasion of my boundaries. Like
Mm,
someone is
mm,
just
mm,
crossing my boundaries.
mm, mm.
So because I was getting alert when they would start saying that on their own behalf, like, okay, yeah, we need, and that it was something maybe I just assume. I realized just now when I was saying that, repeating that it was from the beginning, it was we, not me. So they were just involving me without even just asking or thinking something about me, and they just assume that this is something I'm going to do that, which is also again another insight about my own way of communicating myself, my own way of communicating myself, because how other people get the wrong idea about you. This is how you communicate yourself. So it's
Oh,
not about, yes,
oh, repeat that, please.
yes. So
Excuse me.
it was an awareness about my own self, that how I am communicating myself to others or with others, because
Oh, no, no,
why,
no. It's more appropriate to not communicating with them, communicating yourself to them, right?
yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Okay. Okay.
yes, subtle nuance. Okay, got it. And that was something. It just made me aware that okay, I need to be more thorough, more clear, and not only clear but precise, because the inappropriate application of goodness makes you, in most many cases I have observed that we don't want to say anything which might have a subtle idea of ego involved into that, and try
Yes.
to avoid that and try to just avoid the ego nonsense.
Yes.
Sometimes we go into a completely different direction, and again it becomes a not so honest perception. It creates not so honest perception, which is
Wow.
again a dishonesty. It
Wow.
should not be either way, like okay, yeah, I'm very humble, I'm nothing, and blah blah blah. It is again a subtle ego which you just made it very clear. But it has to be precise, accurate. And I
Yeah.
was forgetting about that. Just trying to be humble, just trying to avoid ego, we go into a complete different extreme,
Yes.
which
Yes.
is also a dishonesty. As if I brag about myself, will be a
Yeah.
dishonesty. Same as if I will not give an accurate or precise idea of my own understanding
Exactly.
or
Exactly.
being, is also it is
Yeah.
also a
Yeah.
dishonesty and not
Yep. Yep.
impeccable at all.
Yep. Yep. It's an inadvertent dishonesty, though. Yeah.
Exactly. Yes.
But
Yes.
still, in the end, yeah.
Still, it's a dishonesty.
Correct. Correct.
It's
Yeah.
still it's a dishonesty, and I realize that. So
Yeah.
when they by default, when they started by saying that, okay, we want now, you should give something to us. I was not part of this thing. It was not even an idea for me. But that moment, I just realized that this is something. Um, you can say that very familiar kind of a trap coming in again.
Mm.
Very familiar kind of a trap, like trap of just being nice and friendly, but to manipulate you. It's a very familiar
Yeah.
trap. I was aware of it. Then I said something, but still I was not able to communicate the whole thing to them.
Mm.
And I was feeling awkward, a bit awkward, that okay,
Mm.
oh my, this will create not so positive impression of them to others, and I was taking care of them. But what I was
Yeah.
actually doing, I was forgetting that it is going to give a wrong impression of me also. It is already done, and I need to make that thing clear. So my I cannot say that it, like, but my gesture was asking me to not say much directly, but just hold a bit. Uh, but my adamance and my honesty was demanding that I need to be accurate and precise. And then I just in my first available, I respond to them and make it very clear. Without being rude, I just made myself clear, accurately and precisely, and communicated. And to my surprise, it was actually, it has been received positively and appreciated.
There you
And
go.
that is something very good. After
Eh,
that, after that, the manipulation thing, after that, I got some hints that this thing has been shared with some other people and tried to give some justification and all that. But for
Wow.
me, but for me, that thing was ended there. Once I
Mm.
made myself clear and disconnect myself immediately, I disconnected right there. And after that,
No.
everything was
No.
good and happy and joyful for
It
me.
was done. It was done. It was taken. It was
Yes,
resolved, right? You had resolution, capital R
yes.
resolution. Ah.
And exactly. And when we get a resolution, impeccably, of course, with impeccability, when we get the
Yeah.
resolution, not just
Yeah.
nonsense a resolution, but with impeccability, when we make ourselves, like in that particular case, when I made myself clear as accurately, as precisely as I can, and without hurting anyone, without being rude or awkward, just being adamant about myself, that was the moment of freedom. I had no residue inside me, was bothering me, and I just want to make it clear, blah, 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 blah. Nothing. I didn't had a single word about that anymore. Like,
Didn't
nothing
have.
more
Yeah.
is needed.
Yeah.
So that was something very, very, very comforting for me, that I was feeling joyful. But when I communicate with them again, I feel that there are still something going on. Yes, this must be because it was a wrong move from that person.
Mm.
So
Mm.
now, when they have to take the complete responsibility of it, it is going to caused a bit of stress, yes.
Oh yeah.
And of
Yeah, a little bit.
course,
Yeah.
as a default reaction, they are going to like try to justify that and all that. But I
Correct.
don't need anything, and
Yeah.
it is
Yeah.
not my responsibility to too worried about what they are going to feel and do and say and anything else.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
a lot of awareness inside self-awareness
Oh,
mostly, which is most important,
yes.
and and,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
having an opportunity to practice adamance, to practice capital D diplomacy, to practice impeccability.
Yes.
It's a big deal, but yes, I have
Always. Always.
yes, yes,
Always. All right.
yes.
So to recap a bit, so this happened before yesterday, if I'm understanding correctly, and then yesterday something came along that gave you additional perspective on not only that incident, but other things that had been shared and discussed way before. Yes.
Yes, yes,
So what happened yesterday?
yes. So yes, yesterday when I discussed and I got some feedback from that situation, then I start thinking about this again, and I just it was like, okay, just having this ability slow motion in ultra motion, step by step, word by word, action by action. If you can see that, if you can go through the situation, it gives you whole lot of more insight and information about that situation. And this is what I did because of the emphasis from you for the clarity.
Hmm.
And when I was
Ah,
observing, yes, so when I was observing you, how we were doing this capital R reading, and going through all the nuances as much as we can. Of course, there is so much to explore and discuss as much
hold on, Beena.
Yes,
We lost you. You lost you. You started breaking up from as.
Claire.
Yeah. Yeah. We lost you though. We lost you there. So you have to repeat the last section there from as. Can you hear me? No. All right. So Beena just going to leave and come back to reset the audio. So this is just to elaborate on this. That this is what we do. We go over things like this. And I'm practicing capital H hearing because Beena is referring to something that's very important to her. Now, at first, I have some idea, but I also, when she said this again, I'm not just doing this because I'm like looking to illustrate this mechanism. I am a bit unclear as to what she's saying. Well, because also she doesn't want to reference the incident specifically, right? Because she's respecting the privacy of the others. So she has to put it in abstract terms, which makes it not that clear, right? So I am doing this, to get my own clarity, but also obviously, very importantly, when we do this kind of thing, every time Beena is expressing this, it gets her more clarity of expression. Now, that's not for my benefit only. Yes, of course, it's for my benefit, but it's profoundly and principally for her benefit. We sort of know what we're saying inside our heads, but then when we actually say it, it doesn't come out quite the way we have it inside our minds. When we can have those two coincide and be the same, that's when we really own and really know and become expert about wow understanding. Otherwise, we kind of just believe we fully understand. And that belief is not an actuality. We need to prove it and demonstrate it. And that's why Beena and I do this going over and over until okay, here we go. And we can really demonstrate that full knowledge. So, Beena, say when you're back. So we're going to hear this again. We're going to hear this again. Well, because Bina broke up there, so now she's basically it was halfway through. So just You have to say the whole thing over all from the start. We got some at the beginning, but if you continue now, we're gonna not know where you left off. So what happened yesterday, to ask again, and I was just explaining while you were away, to say this is for the purpose of taking what we know inside our heads and to express it so that the two can be coincidental, because it's usually different. Our belief of knowing and our actuality of knowing, two different things. Hello, Beena. Hello, Beena. So will you say again, what
Exactly.
happened? What happened yesterday, Beena Magic? What happened
Okay, so
yesterday?
yesterday I was just observing that how you were doing, of course, capital R reading, and this is what we have been doing, and I've been practicing that. But yesterday it was just a reminder that if an opportunity, if we can have an opportunity to go through any situation or any incident in our life, uh, the way we do the capital R reading, if we can do that for that particular incident or situation, it is so helpful, because if you just go one by one with all and pay attention to all the particular or peculiar usage of vocabulary and the tone and the mood and sometimes unnecessary laughters, and you can pick from the unnecessary or inappropriate laughters or chuckles, the
Or
manipulation
whatever.
big time.
Yeah. Yeah. Or
Oh,
whatever. It's not necessarily just from those, right? You're just using those as
exactly.
examples. Right.
So
So
we can do that, and just being thorough and just being observant of going to detail and pay attention to
there you
nuance
go. Right.
is
Exactly.
really helpful. So actually, doing the capital R reading for the situation is really helpful, and that's how I became
Yes.
able to do my takeaway on that situation,
Yes.
and that
Now,
takeaway a
I
lot of
thought yes. Oh, sorry. Will you admit Lisa, please? Oh, I'm so pleased Lisa's here. Can you?
I don't have access. No, I don't have. No.
Oh, why not? Why not? You need to sign in again. That's why not, Beena.
Yes, I think what
Sign into Zoom. Sign into Zoom. Anyway, we'll get to it later. We'll get to it later. No worries. No worries. Wonderful.
hello, Lisa.
Good morning, Lisa. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning, you
Yes,
guys.
good morning.
Yes. Yes. This is my
Yes,
standard default greeting now, as
yes.
Why
as
not?
right. But Lisa, not only as a greeting, but also as a blessing, right?
It is
So
that's very
both
appropriate.
ways. In other words, it's hello and goodbye, and like when you say fare thee well, or something like that, right? You know, I
You
can
know, that
say,
sounds perfect for Nobelia too, doesn't
I wrote it
Yes,
into the story. I added it into the story.
it?
I changed the story. So
Oh,
yes,
that's great.
yeah, it's absolutely wonderful. It's such a profound. It's very much in that same sense as hello world. Hello world.
Yeah,
I
which
say
I like
hello world.
too very much. I
Yeah, I
say
say
that
it all day
sometimes.
long, and it's just good
Mhm.
morning, and good morning to you. I can say this any time of the day, right?
Yes.
Anytime. I can say it when you leave as well. Like, if you're waving your friends goodbye, good morning to you. It's like, have mornings on your way. How profound is that, right? I mean, what a good wish to wish.
absolutely.
It's very profound. So thank you for that, Lisa. Thank you for that. It's
Sure.
really, really profound.
It just
Beena,
happened.
Yeah.
but this is what we love. This is what we love when stuff happens, right? It's this moreness philosophy. It's why I so love it. I used to say more, capital M more. I talked a lot about capital M more. And then moreness flowed from capital M more. It wasn't there right at the start when I started emphasizing capital M more. I had done a whole, it's in Way of Impeccability, this whole session on insisting on extracting the more. So I was really focused on it, but didn't necessarily use the term moreness, maybe internally a bit here, but didn't actually express it out. So they flow. And then that's what I love about what we do. It's living, it updates, it updates. Most most times when people have what's kind of like a system or something that they revolve around, it tends to become static. To me, it's very important that our core, our basis, can have consistency and continuity, yes, but it's not by default, and we don't sort of insist on it being static. it updates as appropriate. So this is a magical update. So yeah, you'll see it in the story when it comes. It's very interesting, Lisa. I scanned the whole book, yeah, and I looked for good morning, good evening, good afternoon. None, not one. Hello
Did you
came up,
find
yes.
Hello World?
Yes, Hello World that came up because Hello World is in the story, but only one other incident where hello is used, right? Beside as in hello world, because that I think comes up twice. Biella says hello world to the world, and also she sings it because it's the planet anthem of Nobelia, or the new nobility anthem. Right? That's it, just two words, hello world. So, anyway, I'll get into that another time. So that's where it comes up. But then Ursula is about to say hello to Dream Deer, but before she can say hello, Dream Deer starts talking. So I changed that to say, before Ursula could say good mornings, as she noticed the custom of the new nobility, both for saying hello and goodbye. See, so I made a little explanation for it there in the context. And now it's she's seen this is like the custom of the new nobles, but also they use it both ways, or hello and goodbye, right? It's both. It's a greeting and a blessing, in other words, yeah, or a well wish. So,
Yay, I added to the
exactly.
story.
Oh, absolutely. You've added much to the story, and everybody does. I mean, this is a nice example of, to me, the magic and the potency of collaboration, right? Because you took something, I collaborated with myself, I guess, taking more and turned it into moreness. And when I really thought about it, where moreness came in the connection was as an alternative to the unknown, because when we say the unknown, that has all that negative connotation, right? So, and just before I carry on, so anyway, so I used moreness as an alternative, as this positive alternative, as a moreness alternative, and also just that it's attractive now to us, it's not fearful. So, also, I want to
Well,
connect
that's
this.
interesting. It's
Please.
interesting that it developed from your wanting to an alternative to the unknown. I mean, to me,
Yes.
that's very interesting. It's kind of
Oh,
profound in
exactly.
itself. It's like it's
Exactly.
not just unknown; it's more.
Exactly, because if I said to you, you know what, Lisa, I won the lottery and I'll become a billionaire or whatever, and I've got a spaceship now, right? And we're gonna go exploring the unknown. You want to sign up for go exploring the unknown in the spaceship of mine? You're like,
Oh
yeah,
no, that sounds scary.
exactly, exactly. And I say, Lisa, I've got the spaceship, and we're gonna go out and explore moreness. Would you like to come along?
Oh, that sounds awesome. Let's go.
I love Lisa's canned responses. Yeah, very appropriate. Thank you. Very good. Very good. But exactly. But I mean, we're making a sort of a joke out of it, but it truly does make a massive difference. To go and explore moreness and to go and explore the unknown, two different things. And so that was for me this deep application psychology. It came from understanding of labeling. Yeah. And so it was, I don't remember exactly what time this was, but a couple of years ago now, I guess, more than a couple maybe. But so the understanding is that we can change our entire psychology, how we feel, our motivations, our attitudes, every single thing, simply by relabeling something, right? We relabeled the unknown into moreness, and our whole world changed. The actuality is the
Labels
same.
really do cause a lot of
Exactly.
problems, don't they?
Exactly. So this falls under the heading of that magic, one of those golden triangles, and there are many of them. The one of energy management, mood management, and then the connector between them is association management. You say, wow, that's sort of interesting. Energy management, mood management. I get that, in order to manage your moods, you need to manage your energy, because if you've got low energy, it's hard to get into a good mood, right? So those two are kind of
There's
a
nothing,
that go ahead.
right? No, well, there's nothing like a label to start your mind associating, is there?
Exactly. But also, if we're looking to mood change and we change our energy, right? And say, well, I've got this unknown that I've got to deal with. This is depressing. Woe is me. Life is horrible. Blah blah. Oh, sorry, I can't do self-pity. I mean, I'm trying hard to do self-pity, but I can't do it. Right. So we get into that whole bubble. I say, okay, let me raise my energy. Okay, I've got to go deal with the unknown. Yeah. So they're not working for me. Because even though I am making a deliberate effort to apply both mood management and energy management, there's a third factor that's influencing this, and that's association management. Yeah. And so my associations with the unknown are so overwhelming, so negative, so terrible that I can't move on, and I don't know why I'm stuck. So when we apply energy association management, it frees us up. Sure has a negative association with the word motivation. Lots of stuff. Now, it's not necessarily logical. Like she said it yesterday on the live, right? She said that motivation to her connects to mental health issues. You're like, how do you get that right? But see, this is the magic of associations, or at least the potency that we need to understand. Associations are not necessarily logical. Yes.
No, not at all. Very, very varied also.
Exactly.
On,
And they can be completely random. Yes. Yes. I look at Pavlov and his dogs. His dogs were like, man,
right.
dude, why are you salivating?
That's
What's
a really
going on
good
with you?
example.
Right. The one dog says to the other, well, why are you salivating? Oh, yeah, crap, I'm salivating too. Like, what's going on here? They don't even notice the bell, right? They don't even realize that that bell is associated with food to them. So, well, I'm hungry and food is coming. How do you know food is coming? Well, I know it's coming because I'm salivating. Oh, yeah, true. Duh. Okay. See, now we get into a feeling belief loop too. So it's like a bit more there. We get into feeling and belief loops. But this understanding that associations can greatly impact our entire perception of reality. So it's very hard to undo those negative associations, like in Cher's case with motivation and all. I mean, she didn't elaborate too much. She just said one instance. It's kind of hard to undo those because you need to now re-emphasize it. We don't have that energy coming at us. The incident, it's very hard to recreate such a dramatic incident. So we'll just say, let's just, instead of doing this, let's just jump right out of it and have a completely alternative strategy. Instead of saying motivation, yesterday, Sure replaced the word motivation with the word squeeze.
Squeeze? Did you say? I missed it. So
yeah, squeeze.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
that's
I'm being squeezed because, and it simply came from It came from something that Ramsey said. He said, we like a sponge soaking up things. But sometimes then he said, oh, I like this idea because you can also squeeze a sponge to get the moreness out of it, right? Oh, so when I'm being squeezed by whatever, I could say that's my motivation, right? I'm being squeezed by life. I can be squeezed internally. I can squeeze myself. Yeah, it's fantastic.
It's very unique and creative for her, which is not unusual. She seems a very unique and creative person.
Exactly. As are you. As are you. And I'm not saying this simply because, well, you've said it about Sure, and I'm going to say it about you. I really mean this. Like in the good moreness, right? To me, in all the time I've known you, you come up with stuff like this on a regular basis. That's just it's profound. It's really wonderful. Now we all have this, of course. The more we pay attention to others, truly pay attention, we see everybody has this. Yeah, everybody has.
Of course.
I mean, Cheryl's here. Hello, Cheryl. Hello, Cheryl. Come on, Zoom. Dang it, Cheryl. Don't be hiding out there in comments. Oh, I shouldn't say hiding out.
Come on, you guys. It's not that hard. All of you.
I don't want to put pressure on you, Cheryl, because Cheryl might be working for all I know. So I just love that you're here, Cheryl. Really, you live in my heart as other people do, to various degrees. Some like they sort of crowd my heart. Let's put it that way. And Elizabeth is here too. Elizabeth, just too wonderful. So Norma is here, of course. He has L plates on it. Oh, can you elaborate? Is that love plates on it? Oh, yes, on my heart. Oh, yeah, maybe. I don't know what Norma means exactly. Who is the lady on Zoom? Well, there are two ladies on Zoom. Do you mean on the video? Oh, we got a new person here today on video. Who's this? Lisa, do you know who this is? Do you
I'm
know who's
not
joining
seeing
us here?
it. I
Oh, well,
I
well,
don't see anything but you
well,
on my phone.
oh, you're on the phone, so you have to swipe left and then you'll see the others. Because Zoom will put on the speaker. If the video is on, then you'll see the speaker. If your video is not on, then they'll see whoever was the last speaker, in this case, me now, right? But if you swipe left, then you should see all of it, no? On your phone. Are you muted, Lisa? So this
I see
lady
you
on
and
Zoom,
yeah, I see you and Beena.
well, this is the lady now, but we're going to have to just treat her as the lady. She's been relabeled as the lady, right? Or
How come
unless,
there is no name associated with my picture? I wonder. Do you know?
well, it shows on my Zoom, but I don't know why it's not showing on. I mean, I do see you there, and let's see. Hang on, that name is not accurate in any case.
There's
So
Beena.
there's Beena, yes. All
Beautiful
right.
Beena.
Yeah, but now we have to say, who's this lady? Not Beena. Who's this lady?
Lisa.
Beena's
Lisa,
Beena's
she's
been.
asking about.
Oh, you
Who's
are asking
that
about
lady?
Lisa.
Who's that
Lisa.
lady? Who's that lady?
Yes.
She's listening.
Yes. All right. The lady, I thought you were referring to Beena, but the lady, the elf lady, is Lisa Unleashed. Ah, dang it, I spelled it wrong. I was trying to type too hurried there. There we go. Lisa Unleashed. That who that is. Since we are doing. Oh, okay. So yeah, on the phone, Lisa, when you swipe left, did you see Beena as well?
I did.
Right,
Thank you for
right.
the tip.
Yeah, it's a great tip. So for Zoom, just understanding how Zoom works, when you just at the default, whoever speaks, it puts up them on your screen. But if you swipe left, you'll see everybody. So very helpful. Yes, very helpful. That's okay, Norma. It's all good. See, Lisa also. So your question here was very helpful. This is Lisa, and Lisa is someone I've known for a while. And, we used to interact very regularly when Lisa was working. Then Lisa retired, and anyway, long story. But now Lisa is also here to join and participate, and also is.
Well, the truth is, Sil has had me locked up in the closet for the last 5 years, and he finally took me off my leash and opened the door.
There you go. There you go. Oh man, see what I mean? Surprises from Lisa. Yeah. You have a peculiar sense of humor, and we all have, right? So this is a profound thing. So Elizabeth says, "Good morning, and thank you, Beena, for sharing. I relate." This is wonderful. I just love that you guys are here, both Cheryl and Elizabeth, and of course Norma.
Yes.
It's. I said earlier, Norma, when you're here, it's very important to me that you're here. Yeah, I love that you're here, Norma. Always. So Norma too. Norma's got a very naughty sense of humor. Very impish.
And we will have her on Zoom.
Say again?
I was just saying that we will have her on Zoom also someday.
Hopefully, yes. Hopefully. No pressure.
Yes.
And no pressure at all. Again, all of this, it's always optional. Rule number 1 of relationships, as from Sil's book of relationships. Now, that may be a 1-sentence book, but doesn't matter. Rule number 1, I'm not a great fan of rules, but in this case, it is kind of a rule, right? So take it under advisement as a rule. Rule number 1 of relationships is no expectations and no obligation.
Yes, I've always liked that. Like when we were just chatting and you would say, messages in a bottle.
Yes.
Don't worry.
Yes. I love that. We used to really do this. So what Lisa's referring to is I take chat or email, and I regard, particularly text chat, I regard those messages that I send to you and also receive, but first we start to send. I regard them as a message in the bottle. So let's imagine we're on desert islands. Well, not desert, but islands, and we just remote. It's just me on the island, and I can see across the water, but there's long, strong currents, so I can't swim there, and there's no trees for rafts or whatever, or not enough. But I can see there's somebody over there, but now we want to communicate. So I throw my bottle into the water. Now, mostly it kind of gets there, right? But not always. So when I put this out, I know that, yes, at some point they're going to receive it, most likely, most of the time, but sometimes not. But also, I don't know exactly when they will receive it, right? And I don't know which messages they receive or don't. So therefore, how can I have any expectation of reply? I can't. Yes. So when I send my message thus on chat, if I don't hear back from you in regard to it, well, that's okay. It's not a problem because, well, for whatever reason, you didn't get it. Now, here's the fun part. Now you send messages back to me by bottle. I know that you don't know whether or not I received that message. So I don't always have to go down to the beach to check for bottles. Some of your messages I can say, yeah, whatever, Beena, whatever. All right. And just ignore it and carry on, right? I can choose to not open that message, choose to not respond. All right. I do actually see the message, but I'm not obligated to respond because I know you sent it knowing that I don't need to respond. Now, maybe it's not that it's like just a negative thing. It may be a very positive thing, but it's like, man, that's really profound, Lisa, whatever you said there. But I just don't have the time to respond to this. And I can just move on. I don't feel guilty. I don't, because I know there's no expectations and I'm not obligated. So that obligation there, it frees me up to respond as much or as little as I like. And when I like also, what a way to communicate. Isn't this a profound way to communicate? I love it. Oh, a London
Mhm.
sense of humor says, yeah, says Norma. I love it. I love it, no matter where it's from. I regard it as a Norma sense of humor, much like a Lisa sense of humor, and much like a Beena sense of humor. Well, I don't know. Does Beena have a sense of humor?
Of course.
No answer from
I do have a
Beena.
very
So.
serious doubt about that.
Yeah, I'm just teasing because yesterday I told, or the day before, I told Lisa the joke that I told to Lisa to share yesterday. And my delivery, I guess I was hamming it up, right? So it was the joke of, have you heard about what happened to butter? But I was a bit more, now I've got a smile on my face. It was like very earnest. And Venus like, no. Said, well, I know I shouldn't pass along rumors, but I just can't help spreading this. Nothing from Beena. Nothing from Beena. At just complete radio silence. Okay, waiting for more. In other words,
R.
was too brilliant. Was too brilliant. Yeah, it's my corny joke, but still, sure enjoyed the joke. But so I laughed my head off, not because the joke was funny, but because it was funny that it just like went right over Beena's head. It's like, come with your nonsense. I got more important things to do here. What's the silliness here? I was taking you serious. It was too brilliant. It was too wonderful. So I love it. So
I was not expecting this type of joke from him, and I was like,
right,
okay, so what we are doing here now.
right.
So
It's too
my
wonderful.
response was like, what we are doing right now, like seriously, this is what we are going to do. So
Yeah,
I
yeah,
was like,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
okay.
Like really,
So,
so are you in 2-year-old mode here? What's going on?
And sometimes do actually
oops.
jokes just yes.
Say again,
Oops.
Beena. Say again.
I was just like, yes, sometimes some jokes really just go over my head, and I'm like, okay, so it's not always that but yesterday was like, I was not getting it.
Yeah.
Well,
You
that
know,
can be cultural too sometimes, right?
correct,
Because like
correct.
my husband is British. He was born in England, and his parents are so, I mean, their sense of humor it's kind of difficult for me in a way. I rarely want to laugh at an English joke, and I mean, I've tried to figure out where the humor is, but I just don't see it.
Yes. I love that. So yeah, it is cultural too, but also it was expectations because, typically when I come on and we discuss, we getting involved in, depth and layered and moreness topics. So I'm very earnest typically. So yeah, I came and I started the day earnest. Like, have you heard what's happened to butter? So I was hamming it up, but I was a little too successful in my hamming it up. So Beena had no cue that I was actually telling it so. Because it's the very first thing I said to her. So the cueing is very
So
important.
Beena, can you tell us a Pakistani joke?
I'm not actually a very serious person. Yes, you're right.
Oh, or a joke from where you're from?
As so we can share with you. I'm not very good with.
Doesn't matter. So tell us a joke poorly.
So it's like
She might need to think about it.
okay.
Can you hear her? I can't hear her audio.
No. I just wanted to give her some space because when it. Oh.
But about it's
You're still breaking up. Can you leave and come back again, please, Beena? It does reset it real nice, and then come and tell us your joke. Yeah. So, by the way, on Zoom, especially when there's a bit of lag, like when somebody's got a poor internet connection, what Zoom does, it slows everything down to get that. But so I usually just kind of try not to say something, because if you when there are two Zooms going over at the same time, Zoom will cut one out so that the other one can be heard if the internet
makes it
connection
more
is slow.
difficult. Yeah. Okay.
Right. It's hard to get it right with a lag timing. It's a very difficult thing to do. So, all right,
I like the little ding when somebody comes on Zoom. It's like they're
I
ringing
love
the
that.
doorbell.
I know. I love that.
It's like,
I love that. I
hi.
love that.
Oh, they've
Yes.
just
Yes.
arrived.
Yes. It's such a joyful sound. It's so wonderful. All right, Beena. So your poorly told joke. So the exercise is to tell a joke poorly.
it is going to be very poor because this is something very peculiar about humor. It needs to have the right tone and the understanding of cultural background, the context is.
Okay.
Anyway, I will try. So there was a guy who just had a cat, and but as normally cats are, the cats become more and more dominating and stubborn. So they tried to get rid of it. That guy used one day he said, "Okay, enough is enough. I'm just going to take this cat out and leave it out somewhere else." And he did. But when he came back, the cat was there on the doorstep before him. Okay. And then he says, "No problem. Next time, I'm just going to go more." And then he did. And it was at the doorstep before him. Just go really out of this town and just outside. And he really took like really detours and all sort of things to make it impossible for the cat to come back. And then hours just passed by, and then his wife received a call, and her husband asked her, "Did the cat came back?" And she says, "Yes." Then he says, "Okay, so just let her out so she can bring me back because I lost my way."
Wow, interesting, Beena, interesting. We missed some of it. It was some gaps in there, but yeah, that is very interesting. I think this actually falls into more like a folk wisdom tale rather than only a joke, right, Beena? There's a moral to this. There's a little bit of a lesson there, yes,
Oh, that's cute.
Beena?
I just tried to say, okay, I just tried to say it as poorly as I can because it's funny in the language.
That's
It is
very
funny,
interesting.
though. It's funny.
Yeah.
Oh,
Because there are some peculiar words and the way he called back, and he says, okay, yeah, so if Kamini has come back, so let's just out so she can bring me back now. But it was a
Wow.
tone, it was a music. Okay,
Yeah.
funny.
Humor is full of nuance. It's a good thing
But
to
not
pay attention to.
like
Yeah.
this. Anyway.
Interesting. Interesting. All right. So for
But
the
I do have to tell you still that that butter joke, I mean, it just melted my heart.
You love
I
textual jokes.
love it. I love it. I love it. You know, because see now, all right, it's a play on words. But what makes it really funny for me is the inappropriate use of melted my heart here, right? Because that's not something to melt your heart. That's what makes it funny. That second layer behind it, yes, the pun. The pun is like, well, all right, you know. But so puns aren't very funny. I mean, you know, generally. But when you have them used creatively like this, then they're very funny. Yeah. So I love that. That very cool. Very cool. Very cool. All right. We better not get started. We'll go the whole thing. Now, for the astute observer, right? And those of you in chat there, you know, Norma and Cheryl and Elizabeth, etc. Right? You say, but so, you know, isn't your clarity of intent, isn't what we're doing here about the story and, you know, just one word, one concept? Yes. So for me, the thread of what we've been doing is on this thread of moreness, right? And Beena started when we started the session, she started to share about something that happened very significantly for her. It was an incident. Then yesterday came along, and something that had not been clear for her for many years became clear. Yeah, and it's like, oh, I see it now. I see it in a new perspective. I get it. And so there was a shift for her, a big shift for Beena. And this is all under this context of moreness, right? So this is the one concept that we are discussing today, because somebody, a couple people actually, said that when asked, and that's where we were last, right? We were right at that point where Biella asks the question: if you wake up on a planet with your memory gone, that you don't know, don't recognize, and you could only remember one concept, what would you choose to wake up with and remember, right? And so many said love. That's probably the number one most popular. And the second most popular is moreness as a concept, right? So a couple mentioned intent, maybe. Right, that would be number three. At least not that this is a competition or anything. I'm just saying from an intersect point of view. And love is what, if you put this out into the general public, and I have done this, you know, where I did a little bit broader research than just, you know, 5 or 10 people. Love almost always comes back. Yeah, that's it. That's like the
Okay,
way
we have,
predominant one. Go ahead.
still we have Emilsa here.
Yes, Emilsa. Right? I think I'm saying it right. Emilsa. Yeah, I love you. Hello, Emilsa. I love that you're here, Emilsa. I absolutely love that you're here. So now we are discussing this one concept of moreness as a very close synonym for appropriateness. Now, the way I always say that if you put one before the other, which is inclusive and which isn't, right? So this is very helpful. Yes, yes, yes. There to you as well, Imosa. Good morning. Good morning to you. Yes. Oh, I love it. I love it. Oh, very cool. So I see Emilsa is there, right? Which means she's not all year. More stupid jokes. We were telling stupid jokes, Emilsa. I just, you know, whenever somebody says, you know, I'm here, I say, oh, that means you're not all there. Oh, right. So anyway, I like to tease them. So
And now that she's now here, she's nowhere.
exactly. So that means you're free. You're free, Emilsa. You are not attached to anything. Very free, very free. Yeah. So
I have a quick question.
Please,
I'm
please,
sorry
please.
to interrupt.
Oh no.
How are you guys seeing the chat? Do you have a Facebook open also?
Correct. All right.
Okay.
So this is a
Yes.
great question that asked. Now I don't know how to do this on the phone. Both Lisa and I, Beena and our computers. So on your computer, when you open up your Zoom window and you're watching, or when you typically click on something like in this case, right, you're watching the video, and you click on it and it goes full screen. Now, if you're watching it on there, you'll see the chat on the right-hand side. But if you're on Zoom, like we are, and you want to see it on Facebook, you've got to do two things. First of all, you've got to take Zoom out of full screen mode and then drag the window smaller. So I have Zoom as this band at the top of my computer, right? It maybe takes up, I don't know, like a quarter of the screen width and not all the way across. So that means I can see what's lying underneath it. So therefore I have the Facebook window where the video is replaying. I have to turn that sound off because otherwise I'll hear it. And on the right hand side to that, I double clicked on the Zoom video to bring it full screen, and then you see the chat on the right hand side. And the reason I do that is because if you just watch it regularly in group, the chats underneath, they don't update in real time. But when you double click on it, then the chat is on the right hand side there, then you see it update in real time. But for when you're on Zoom, Lisa, in other words, I have the Zoom window dragged smaller so that it can sit on top of that, and so I can see it underneath. But that's why, like when I'm screen sharing, I'll show you. Yeah. Now on screen share, you now not going to see my Zoom window, which I'm now dragging up to the top there, right? And those little windows. But just imagine it showing up at the top there. And that's why you see this, it kind of focuses in on itself. But you see how it's on the right-hand side here. And now when I put the slides on top of that, well, I have to adjust this a little bit. Oh, that's the wrong window anyway. Another wrong window. Dang, too many wrong windows here. There we go. Right. So really? Oh, I'll get there. There we go. And just bring that back. You see, Lisa, how the one window overlaps the other. You see. So, but then when I of course click on this to do something to it, my mouse is being difficult. Then it brings it to the top. Yeah. So you just got to basically just kind of manage which is on top. But if you're just watching the video and you're doing the clicks, if you click on this to respond or whatever, it's going to put it underneath Zoom, and then you just got to click on Zoom to bring it back to the top again. So
thanks, I got it.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not just explaining for you, I'm explaining for others too, so it's just a good thing to know and be aware of. Because Zoom does default to going to the biggest window. So there's a long comment here. So yes, Elizabeth, you're driving, and I love that. I love that. So I like to listen to podcasts and teachings while at work, and yours is useful since you interact with audience and answer questions. However, I cannot always ask my questions at the moment because I'm driving. Also, I cannot tell a joke if my life depended on it. Yes. Well, you can. You just can't tell a funny joke, maybe, or a joke well. But yeah, you can still tell it. Yeah. So, but that's so. Elizabeth, this is something that I specifically and purposely bring into as part of Way of Impeccability, is telling jokes poorly, right? So why would you want to practice telling jokes poorly? Think about the ability that it requires to be able to tell a joke poorly. Yeah, Lisa? What abilities would be required?
Oh, I'm so sorry, but so I have Facebook up, but now I've got the sound and I've got that reverb, and I can't find to turn off the audio.
Oh, so on Facebook, click on the video, and then you'll see it will bring up the controls, and it's on the right hand side. You want to turn the audio off on the Facebook video. Yeah.
Right. Well, I know, but I can't find it. I had it before, but now it's not there. Anyway, I'll figure it out. But you're reverbing, and I'm going to get off because I don't want to confuse everybody.
Yeah. No, we don't hear it. So it's not a problem. So we don't hear your reverb. We don't hear it. So it's fine.
Well, that's good. Yeah.
Okay. So on that.
So what was your question?
Oh, there we hear it a little bit now. Okay, look here. Look here on the let me screen share and show you to turn this off. Right. So here's my, and there's You have to sort of move your cursor to bring the control up. It can be a bit hid over here. It's on the right hand side here.
Huh. Mhm.
Yeah, you have to just kind of wiggle your cursor around sometimes to bring it up. And look, sometimes it can get a bit lost in the stuff behind it like that. So yeah.
Huh. Okay. Well, I'm just
Uh
going to turn it off for now
oh, okay.
until I figure it out.
Interesting. Interesting. I don't know why you could see it. That's very interesting. Maybe just refresh the page and see if that happens. If it brings up, maybe your page is just frozen. Yeah, can happen sometimes. All right. So we're doing lots of digressions today. And yes, Elizabeth, I do understand that about your about you know, that you can't always respond and ask questions, but when you do, it's a big deal. And also just be aware if there's something that comes up that while you're driving and you can't type it, and it's like a really big thing, yes, remember it. Even if by the time that you can leave a comment or a question, the live has ended, it doesn't matter, right? When you leave a comment there, if I don't respond to it during the live, if it comes later, I get a notification. Oh, Elizabeth commented on your video. I go and look and check and respond. I'm very, very diligent about this. Yes. So this is a very big deal to me. All right. So I want to get back to where we were yesterday, right? And Emilsa, so we're on this question of, you know, the one question and the one concept, right? And we went over yesterday the problem with love, and I'll go over it again because it's a very significant point. But what's the greater importance and significance of Biella's question by implication? Right? So this is a kind of a deep question, and there's a lot involved, and it requires, you know, at least in terms of looking at it, I'm just going to answer it on behalf of everybody here. And the greater importance and significance is that her question implies that if you think of yourself, do you necessarily think that in terms of your thinking, your being, your perception, your attitudes, your mindsets, everything about you, do you necessarily think there's a starting point? Or to take it in reverse, can you take all of self, like this behind us there, right? Let's say that's you. Can you take all of that and compact it and put it into a starting point, which if watered, if unraveled, if nurtured like a seed, will grow into the tree of you, or the plant of you, or the monus of you, right? I call them fractal conceptions, because when you look at fractals, right, you see it on the internet, you see those beautiful, wonderful, complex patterns, but most don't know that this simply starts with a very simple formula, like take a line and add another line to it at 40 degrees and repeat. So now you take on the second line, you add another line at 40 degrees, right? You say, well, that's it. That's what fractals are. Yeah. All right. Sometimes a little more complicated than that, but sometimes they are as simple as that. When you do this in thousands or millions of iterations, you see those complex patterns. It's the most incredible thing, but there's an incredible simplicity in a fractal. So the fractal is that formula, but it's not just a static formula. It's a formula that's repeated, watered, in other words, or unpacked. Yeah. So if we say this question of Biella's is saying, if you were to fractalize yourself, to condense yourself into that core formula, which if repeated or thought about, in other words, given energy, yeah, it will lead to all of you. And this is a very profound question, right? So if that's why we come to this one concept. What encapsulates me? What incorporates me? What says all about me? In other words, where do I want to start? But of course, there's a layered moreness to this. It's not just about who you are in essence, but also what will allow you to interact and cope and be able to get the moreness out of the situation, not just survive, but moreness, right? So it's also, in addition to being the greater importance here, is not just that it's a representation of you, but also it is a strategic um, connectivity, right? So that one concept doesn't just become one concept which defines you, but also the one concept which leads to strategy. And this is now if we come to the difference between love, for instance, and appropriateness, where it makes a difference in the strategy. So most do say love, and I do believe that yes, yes. All right. So I'm going to come back to the comments in a moment there. So Imilsa is one that said in later on, right, when you when I was saying to Elizabeth, leave your comments, I'll get back to them. So Imilsa replied to the I think it was the Sunday's live, and she said, oh, by the way, my one concept is love. Now, this to me is yes. When you think of love as being definitive of the person. Yes, this is Imosa, this is Norma, this is Lisa, this is all of you, Elizabeth, all of you, right? If you compact you in, love is a very profound way of saying this is you fractalized, right? Your core fractal is love, and then everything comes from there. Now, all right, Norma. All right, no problem. I'm so pleased to hear. It's truly always, no sorries ever. So, I mean, this is too wonderful that you here. I always love it and appreciate you being here. So I know you do catch up. I know you do. We will catch up. Absolutely. No problem, Norma. No problem. Bye-bye, Norma. Bye-bye. Good morning. Good morning, Norma. See, I can say goodbye and hello. So good morning to you, Norma, for the rest of your day. Good morning. All right. So when we get back to this concept of understanding, um, let me take it off screen share. Actually, it's less confusing. Right. When we look at love as being an encapsulation, a fractalization of you as a person, we say, yeah, that really explains you to me in a big way. Now I say, but you know what? Well, I don't know, Imosa, I'm just going to assume, but I know from others that I know. I say, when you your life doesn't go so smoothly, and things you kind of get into trouble a little bit, or you but awkward or whatever. Could this be because of an inappropriate application of love or goodness? Love, goodness, kind of the same thing here, right? Most people can say I'm love, but they struggle to say I'm goodness. But yet they of course closely linked. I mean, how is love not good, and how is goodness not love, right? So they're very closely associated. All right. So now when we say, yes, you know what? You're right. I have gotten into trouble sometimes when I love too much. Like, well, a simple thing that many people who are very defined by love is very common. They get into trouble because of people pleasing. Yeah, yeah. Oh, wow, Emosa. Okay, she says now I haven't watched all of them. It's all good. So think of people pleasing. It's people pleasing. Now, if you're a narcissist, a BMN, a manipulator, and BSer, and all that stuff, well, your people pleasing is really just manipulation. But if you're a genuine, good, loving person like you guys, you may still find yourself doing people pleasing because you genuinely want to please the people. But but if their motivations and what makes them happy, and in order to please them, you have to sort of do things that are a bit not so good. Aren't you now compromising anything in everything, really, in order to make them happy? See what I mean? Inappropriate application of goodness, inappropriate application of love. So, so when we look at this, now things change and our perspective change. But before I carry on, I really want to ask that question again. Does that make sense? What I'm saying, does it resonate? Is it clear enough? Or because sometimes this is not. It's not a doesn't always connect right away. So sometimes I feel I have to say it again in a different way. So I want to ask Imosa, Lisa, everybody else about this. That just take people pleasing as an example. It's not the only one. There are many ones. An example of when you do it from a position of love. You're not doing it because it's ego issue or whatever, but just from a position you want to make the people happy, but yet it ends up causing problems because it's inappropriate. Yes, when you people please from doesn't matter what the reasons are, but particularly we are going to say now, when you do so from a position of love or goodness. Have you experienced this? Does it make sense? Or even if you haven't experienced it, does it resonate? Does it connect? Lisa? Or are you chatting with Imosa?
No, I'm here. Yes, of course. Yes, if you're that can get you into trouble. You don't want to offend someone, or you don't want to
Exactly.
hurt their feelings.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
you might end up doing something you really don't want to do just
Exactly.
because you don't want to hurt their feelings, or
Right. Right.
that can be fine, because you might
Yeah.
just find good moreness in doing it.
Exactly. Now, so in other words, that you can do your people pleasing, and you were trying to be good, you were trying to be nice, you were trying to be loving, but it's causing a problem. So therefore, it's inappropriate application of goodness. Yeah, it doesn't mean it gets wrong.
Mhm.
It's just goodness inappropriately applied. And this is, I'm using this to leverage this understanding that we need a bit more than love. Love on its own is not enough. And another example that I typically use, I was just using that one because it was handy, but another one is where, for instance, people says, oh, but this is good for you, and they do things that are horrible to you, inappropriate utterly, because they're in a bubble. They're not aware enough to know the full context of what's good for you, and they believe they're doing what's good for you, and they just cause all sorts of trouble and a horrible mess. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Exactly what Elizabeth says. Love is the common ground that connects us, but on its own is not enough. And this is such a profoundly deep, deep, deep understanding. And I want to emphasize this because our minds tend to be brought up and conditioned a bit to either or. So say, well, if love's not the one concept, then there's something wrong with love. Not at all. Not at all. See, that's that either or logic. If something's not right, then it must be wrong. This mentality of opposites, I call it. This is complete nonsense, of course. If something's not black, what color is it? Let me ask you guys. If something's not black, what color is it? What's the obvious answer? And, if you just put this out, like if you did like Jay Leno, you go on the streets and you ask people this kind of question, mostly people will say, well, if it's not black, then it's white. Duh. But that wasn't the question. They didn't even hear the word color, right? Now, of course, you guys that work with color and artists, Elizabeth's going to say, well, if it's not black, it can be any color at all, right? But see, mentality of opposites doesn't bring colors into it. It automatically jumps to say it's not something, it's its opposite, which is complete nonsense, of course, right? If something's not white, what color is it? Well, neither black or white are actually technically colors, by the way. White is
Right.
all the
It's the
colors.
absence of color.
Which is black, exactly. But so if you want to now get nerdy on it, you'll say, well, neither are colors, so it's like anything else. But the point is more about that things aren't defined according to their opposite. This is an assumption. It's a default in life where people go and define things relative to their opposites, and it's profoundly limiting, like with black and white. If you're going to just have black and white, well, first of all, you end up in a gray world, which is, well, that's a third option. It's like, and people ignore this. They don't, yeah, but it's a mixture of black and white, still really at essence black and white. But what about all the colors? I find this so fascinating. When I hear people say, oh, I'm a black and white thinker, I say, oh, my commiserations. I really feel sorry for you. So, that's terrible to hear. And they're like, what? What do you mean that's terrible to hear? I'm very proud of being a black and white thinker. I say, yeah, but aren't you missing out on all those glorious colors? Right? It's a bit of a moment there. So this is a profound point. So I'm making the point about this opposites, that to say love as a one concept is limited. That doesn't mean that there's a problem with love. It's just we're going to enhance love via appropriateness or awareness, right? So of course, I always say when people say love is all you need, so no, you need love with awareness, right? Has to go with awareness, because otherwise you can really cause a lot of problems with inappropriate application of love. Take charity. Actually, this is a very worthwhile thing to look into. It's a bit of a sad story, but it's a very profoundly eye-opening thing. Look into the philosophy of charity, right? Maybe it won't be that way on Google, but look into like NGOs and inappropriate charity application on large scales. This is a horrible story. It's truly a tragic story of these big, non-government organizations, non-profit organizations, big, massive, big charities millions and millions of dollars worth of charity, right? So they go to these other countries, Somalia, starving people in Somalia. This is now way back when, right? Before Black Hawk Down and all that stuff. And they say, oh, these poor people are starving. We need to give them food. So they loaded up all these foods in containers and, oh, here's all this food. We're going to save the people from starvation. And they dropped those containers, right? With the helicopters, they put them down in different parts in Somalia. Oh, brilliant, right? We're doing so good. We're doing so good. What happened next? Do you guys know? Any idea?
They were ripped off.
Not only that, but the BMN said, oh, you just gave me a massive leverage over the people. You enabling me to have power over them. So the hooligans and the gangsters seized those containers and started doling out the food in order, and you had to pay for it or get favors. It gave them power. And so there was not this warlord culture necessarily, a little bit, but not so severely, that those containers created that whole warlord culture, which completely messed up Somalia and led to Black Hawk Down and the piracy off the coast of Somalia, all that stuff, right? So from goodness, inappropriate application of goodness ruined that whole country. Lack of awareness, in other words. See, love without awareness can cause massive problems. So there's another famous incident. And well, if you go through these things, many of the people involved in these charities either quit in deep depression or even committed suicide when they realized that they made a bigger mess, and the sadness of it, that I was trying to do good, and it literally killed the charity workers. There's another famous story that and this is a true story, right? I'm not making this stuff up. This is absolute accurate story. I'm not, I never make things up, of course, but I mean, using it as a fictional analogy to make a point. No, this is a literal analogy. So this group they go to a place, I think it was in Tanzania, if I remember correctly, and they say, well, these people, they living on the breadline, and they kind of struggling, and we want to help them increase their crops and their productivity. So they go and they research and they study, and they're on the ground there, and all the locals are like checking them out. Well, what are all these people doing? Well, whatever, and they search and research, and they do soil analysis, and they do a whole thing, and they come back and they run their tests, and then they say, wow, you know what, this ground is absolutely perfect for growing tomatoes. And tomatoes is, this is a crop that's wanted and desired worldwide. You got a massive market for tomatoes, all the cuisine, all right. So they come back and they show, you can grow these tomatoes. Your soil is perfect for it. You're going to grow these fantastic, wonderful tomatoes. So they do all this. They set it all up for the people, and they plant the tomatoes. They grow the tomatoes, and they let this go. So then they come back a little bit later, when the tomatoes are ripe, and they come to follow up on their research, and they say, wow, you know what? All the tomatoes are destroyed. Like the whole plantation's destroyed. Like, what happened? And at first they thought, well, did the people have object? They said, oh no, we were very thankful for what you did. This was very awesome, was very massive. But, well, we love it, but so do the hippopotami. The researchers completely failed to take into cognizance that there are hippopotamus in the area. And hippopotamus graze at night. So, of course, they were only out in the day, so they never saw the hippopotamus, but they had no clue about local conditions. See, unawareness. So they made all this effort. Not one of them ever asked the locals. Yeah, and then I said, but why do you say anything? So you never asked. You knew what you were doing. You were all going in your bubble. It's like you really seemed like you know what do I know what you're doing? You must have had some, So we just assume you know what you're doing because you acted like you knew what you're doing. And so that was very, humbling for those researchers. They failed to take such a basic factor into account, right? Hippopotamus, they
Lack of
graze.
contact.
Exactly, and just unawareness. I mean, they graze like cows at night, but they only come out at night, which is why they are responsible for more deaths than any other animal in Africa, peculiarly enough.
Wow.
Right?
Didn't
Yeah,
know
it's
that.
very interesting. Yeah, because they, at night, then you go camping next to the river, and the hippopotamus comes back from its grazing, and it just kind of runs over you, and they panic when stuff happens too, and then they cause all sorts of trouble. And it's nighttime, so you don't know what's going on. So yeah, it's very interesting. And they don't necessarily kill you in the water; they kill you on land at night. Yeah. Now, by accident mostly, not necessarily by design. They're not aggressive. They're just scary, like cows, So yeah, it's quite fascinating. But anyway, so these hippopotami, they go, "Oh, thank you for the lovely, delicious tomatoes." And what are you going to do to stop them? It's like, yeah. So very interesting, very interesting. But again, that lack of awareness, inappropriate application of goodness. And I've just related two stories: Somalia and the tomatoes. There are many, many, many like this. And if you follow the trajectory of charity, before charities, like if you go back, like after the Second World War, for instance, they were relatively small, a little bit here and there, but they didn't become these multinational things that we got in later years. Yes, around about in the 90s, more or less, or whatever. I don't know exact timing of it, but it's definitely something more recent from them. And so this phenomenon of essentially multinational, multi-million-dollar charities, real big organizations, is a relatively new thing in the history of things. And their philosophies of how to apply that charity has profoundly changed. I mean, it's almost gone about, and they're still struggling with how to be appropriately charitable. It's a very, very difficult topic. Very, very difficult topic, because they realize they cause more harm than good in most cases. It's quite sad, isn't it? So anyway, appropriate application of love. I'm mentioning this because it's a deep thing, and it's really, it doesn't make me happy telling these stories. It makes me very sad, and to understand this, because we have this deep desire to be charitable, to help, but sometimes we have to realize our help makes it worse. Yes, like for instance, when you love a narcissist, doesn't help, makes it worse. This makes them more of a narcissist. Yeah. So very, very, very possible. Ah, brilliant, 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 brilliant. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Very good. Amron is back. Very cool. Very cool. Hello, Norma. Hello, Norma. It's I'm back. Amron. I'm back. All right. Anyway, so this is a big
Yes.
deal. So in our context here, this is why appropriateness is this modifier. It's not a replacement for love. It's not a replacement for goodness. Sorry, Beena, I want to hear what you have to say. Or intent, as Joseph brought up, it's a modifier. It's not either or. And we have to really make this effort to get out of the either or thinking. Yeah? Please share, Beena. Please say you too. Beena?
I thought I heard Beena.
Yeah. Oh, she's really
Yes.
having.
It's a lag.
Oh,
It's a lag. That's why I was not sharing
oh,
anything.
oh.
Yes. Okay. Can you guys hear me now? Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. So this is I missed a lot because of this internet connectivity today. But what you were saying about this narcissist, if you love them and then actually you fall in love with them, it makes them more, because they are getting validation that they are not just falsely in love with themselves, but it is actually coming from the external sources also.
Yes.
So it's a validation every single time we are giving them appreciation, of course, or love or admiration. It's a validation they are getting for all their nonsense. And this thing is actually, I have observed in my culture, at least. I don't know about, because we are so influenced by the Victorian era in our literature and everything. Especially, I'm not against any gender, but especially women writer here. When my mother used to read digest and all that, the novels, they all are full of nonsense. Sorry to say, but it's a typical narcissist character, which are heroes. Oh yes, so that person is not listening to anyone, and that pity, that poor girl just fell in love with them, sacrificing and assuming that she needs to sacrifice and she need to go through all these nonsense and abuse, mental, emotional, everything, And
Yeah.
they just assume that this is how it is. This is what idea of romance and love they had. And
Yes.
it's like,
Wow.
okay, yeah, they have to be in that kind of macho mindset. Um, and this ruins most of the girls in my generation also, because they
Yeah.
also had the same idea. My friends, they had like, oh yes, the man should be like that. Like seriously, why you are actually cultivating this narcissist in your culture because of your idea of romance, and they make them like
Yeah.
that. If they don't behave
Yeah.
accordingly,
Yeah.
they're not valuable. Like
Yeah.
seriously,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
is what
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
it is a same thing with the ego also. Sometimes the person who is communicating, and we have, okay, yes, he or she is coming from the ego side. It's not or any superiority paradigm. Sometimes, I'm not saying all the time, sometimes it is not the other person. It is our own sensitivity, over sensitivity towards ego. We take
Mm,
everything that it
mm,
is coming
mm,
from the
mm,
ego or the superiority paradigm.
mm,
And this is really a very perfect antidote for any ego or superiority paradigm. If you don't accept that, if you don't acknowledge that, then no matter what they are doing, it is not going to affect you in any way. But sometimes we do that. We just like, okay, yes, because you are we assume that person, or sometimes we acknowledge that, oh, this person is coming from the superiority paradigm or from the ego side, and we start reacting.
mm,
And of
mm,
course,
mm.
in reaction we create more friction, and then the whole thing
Yes.
just messed up. So it's our own
Yes.
oversensitive towards that,
Mm-hmm.
our own focus and our own acknowledgement of the superiority. I'm
An
saying that in
assumption.
both cases.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, sometimes we assume that because we
Yeah.
are oversensitive, our focus is on superiority paradigm
Yes.
and ego. That's why we just start looking for things, like actually searching for things. That, okay, yes, if you are saying
Yeah.
that, it means that you have some ego or some superiority paradigm. And even if it is not coming, or sometimes people do come with that, even then,
Mm-hmm.
if we don't acknowledge that, okay, whatever you are said, I'm just going to focus on the value, then actually it
Mm-hmm.
negates the whole superiority paradigm right there.
Mm,
It's
Yeah,
mm.
us who actually
yeah, that's
establish that
interesting.
superiority
Mm-hmm.
paradigm.
Yeah, it's
So,
like it's
yes,
it can be oftentimes to me it's if I'm not really seeing the person now, like if
Mm.
I'm responding to them from the past or from a past perception, I think it's a prevalent issue because if you're assuming someone, as Phil says, is coming from a certain space, maybe it makes it difficult for them to change and grow in a positive way if we're boxing them based on our past perception.
Exactly. Exactly. And also, if we go by our defaults, the default of the superiority paradigm that gives you a selection from A to Z. But the Beena in her language has other letters besides A to Z, different paradigm. So when we use the paradigm, it limits our options. So we say, well, it's not this, it's not, well, this one fits the closest, or it must be that. Yeah. No, we can't imagine outside the paradigm. So then we tend to, like you say, you box that person and you get that filter and you see their behavior through this motivation. Why am I emphasizing this? Precisely because of motivation. Superiority paradigm motivations are always something in it for me, something negative. I'm looking to get something, or manipulate something, or abuse something, or get hierarchy, etc., etc. We cannot typically, unless we start to learn this alternative paradigm, we can't even imagine that somebody might be doing something for reasons that are not within the superiority paradigm reasons. So we can't understand what they're doing, and we don't see it. And that's a great loss. We can't see that they're being altruistic.
yes,
We can't see that they're acting in attunement. They're being noble. They're being impeccable, etc. Go ahead, Beena. And then, Lisa, when you get a chance, go ahead, go ahead.
like, oops, sorry, joke.
I
I
just want.
didn't get it. And from
Oh,
it just flat. It just gets flat completely. Same can happen with the superiority paradigm. Not always, but of course, at certain level, we can achieve that if we don't acknowledge to that, if we don't subscribe to that. Even if a person is coming from the superiority paradigm, it doesn't matter because I'm just getting value. Okay. If I'm not subscribing to your superiority paradigm, I'm not going to acknowledge that. And that is really a killer for the superiority paradigm if you don't give them a validation and acknowledgement. It will go flat.
yeah, 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 yeah. We can lose so much. Lisa, unless you have something to add, could you read Elizabeth's comment and comment on Elizabeth's comment, please?
Hold on. Sorry about that.
No hurry, no hurry. We can hold on for
Okay,
as long as needed.
compassion appropriately applied has magical results. Boy, you're pretty
Yes.
deep, Elizabeth.
Pretty is an
Um,
understatement. Yes. Yes. She's as deep as you,
compassion
Lisa, and as deep as
appropriately
Lisa.
applied
Yes.
has magical results. See, yes,
Yes.
especially
Yes.
if you, yes, so you can have compassion you can have compassion for someone who you believe is coming from a space that's motivated with less than goodness. If you have
Yes.
compassion for them and you hold the space for perhaps they then they might feel that they're being accepted by you, and that may make a shift. I mean, that can happen. Or the way we react to someone can shift them, perhaps.
Yes. Yes. All right. So now I was making coffee there and I read Elizabeth's comment from a little bit of a distance. And what I read was this. So please comment on that as if Elizabeth had said it. Oh, could you please repeat that statement, please, Lisa? I'm assuming, Emilsa, there's a delay between the comments and what we see. So it's helpful to say Lisa or Beena, whoever, because it's hard to remember exactly because there's a delay, about a 30-second delay. I'm
So
assuming Lisa.
Elizabeth's, you want me to reread
Yeah, but
Elizabeth's comment?
first
Okay.
say what you said about what Elizabeth said, because Emilsa's asking you to repeat what you said.
Okay. Well, her comment is compassion appropriately applied as magical results, and I was just saying that that's very, very true, because if someone feels your compassion deeply, that it can possibly have a shift to them. They may, even if they're possibly not in a good space at the moment.
Yes.
And
So
then you said, oh, go ahead.
Oh, I just to elaborate on you before we go on to my thing, because that's a whole new discussion. Yes, thank you, Emilsa. See, Emilsa said Lisa's. So if I'm taking what you're saying, I'm doing a repeat back now, and I want to sort of just as a little quick aside here, you'll often hear Beena sort of seemingly repeat what I'm saying. It's not that Beena sort of jumping on the bandwagon and she's not thinking, oh, you guys didn't get it. She's doing it as a repeat back for her own internal clarity, right? And it, of course, adds to us because now I hear what I said and I hear how Beena heard what I said, and I'm hearing what, in other words, the point from multiple angles, right? And yours and everybody's. So this is fantastic. So this point of compassion being magical is because from what you said, Lisa, right? Because compassion, when extended, can have a leveraging or an affecting effect on people, an affecting effect on people. It can change them, right? It can leverage them. It can give them an energy. It can give them a new mindset, a new awareness. So we can change the world via compassion. Yes.
Yes, and compassion, said in another way, could be like deeply listening. You know, if you're
Exactly.
really feeling someone and you deeply listen to what they have to say, I know
Exactly.
by experience that is very magical.
Yeah. Right.
It can
It's
really, really make you feel like you've been heard, and sometimes just really being deeply heard once fully in your life can be magical and
Yeah,
shift you.
yeah. So let's go into nuance here. If we take, right, when I talk about capital U, understanding, that is another way of saying compassion. Now, compassion normally has that emotional aspect in it, which is that empathy, which says, I feel what you feel. But that's just empathy to say, I feel what you feel. Compassion is to say, I feel what you feel and understand why you feel it in your circumstances. And also, compassion implies that, I realize that this is kind of sort of a bad luck type of a situation, right? It can't be helped. So I feel for you on behalf of you. Compassion, but compassion has that deep. The difference between compassion and empathy is that compassion has understanding included with the empathy. Yes, make sense?
Sure. Yeah, that makes
Okay.
total sense.
Okay. Okay. I mean, I ask this not because I'm looking to be agreed with. No, I'm asking simply as a communication check, right? So I broadcast a message, and like in all communications on the internet, you say, "Did you get this?" And then it sends the message back to you. It says, "Yes, this is what we get." All right. So then message received, but I know it because you send the message right back to me. So
All
my
right.
yes
Well,
is doing that. Yeah.
if someone listens to someone and has a sense of empathy and compassion, but it doesn't really lack an understanding, then that person hasn't really been heard.
Exactly. And there's no real compassion. There's just empathy. Yeah. Yeah. Which is a different thing. Compassion has got that understanding element. Also,
Right.
so just I've got in this Moreness-Project that we are engaged in here, right? Which I don't emphasize too much, but just to give a deeper context. The program that, when we do the tasks and exercises, this is on the Nobleness program, and the Nobleness program is one of many inside the Moreness program, the Moreness-Project. And there's three main huge programs in the Moreness-Project. And of course, the Moreness-Project, it's a follow-on from Way-Of-Impeccability. And the three main programs are this nobleness, nobility, being noble. That's the one. And then the other one is the psychology of the superiority paradigm, which we touched on as well. And then the other main program, and these are huge programs, right? They're months long at the minimum. And the third main program is capital H hearing. Yes. So now you mentioned, Lisa, I just want to go on to this nuance because it's a big, big point. You say that somebody being heard can change their life. I want to put a tweak onto that, because for those, and that capital H hearing program is it's about hearing yourself and of course hearing others too. And it can also be taken. Many coaches do that program, and it's profoundly changed their coaching program. But of course, we want to learn to be our own coaches. That's its main focus, right? To be your own coach. Now, to understand what you said, yes, being heard is a big deal. But what's an even bigger deal is to feel heard. Subtle difference,
Right.
yes? I believe when you say being heard, you mean feel. But sometimes I
Yes.
can know I've been heard, but I don't necessarily feel heard.
Well, that's the difference. I think that's where the lack of understanding is. Without the
Exactly.
understanding,
Exactly.
you know you were heard, but you don't feel like you were
Yes.
heard.
Right. Or it's also repetition. Yeah, right. So sometimes I know you heard me, I know I'm being heard, but I don't feel it yet because I haven't said it enough. I need to say it again and again and again and again to feel heard. It's a profound thing. It's a
I guess
profound
that's
thing.
where the phrase "let it sink in" me. I guess that's where that comes from.
Exactly. So for me, I make a huge effort to make sure that those I interact with feel heard, not just are heard. Because I know I hear very quickly, and sometimes I hear you. That doesn't mean anything because you don't feel heard. So I have to wait until you feel heard, and that's why we say things over and over. Sometimes myself too. I say something I don't feel heard, and I say it again. So I repeat myself a lot sometimes in order to feel heard to myself. No matter whether other persons or not, I don't always know because they're not giving me a repeat back. Now, of course, in the context of the capital H hearing program, if you are going to be training, or if you already are a therapist or psychologist or whatever, right? I mean, they typically don't actually have true capital H hearing skills. Very seldom in my experience. I mean, they believe they have, but when they come and do this, oh, wow, and it just opens up a whole new world. Now, it's not just about hearings, making space, appreciation, energy. There's a ton of stuff in there. But when this nuance is really understood, it is transformative. In other words, you can be of massive, profound benefit, help, value, assistance, usefulness to somebody without possessing one iota of wisdom or advice, simply because you've learned how to capital H here. You have the ability and the skill to persist in going on until the person feels heard. Yes, that's very profound. It's a very big deal. So this is now, I bring it in here because this is what the new nobility do. So our story is about the new nobility. They practice this all the time. And you'll see this constantly. You know, Beena and I want to make absolutely clear, we don't absolutely do not think of ourselves as being new nobles. Hell no, we aspirants, we very much aspire to be there. But we do make a concerted effort to actually apply these things that they do there, which is like, you know, to keep saying stuff to ourselves, repeat it, and have that patience to be listening to those repetitions over and over. And it's a joy. It doesn't matter to me how many times you say it, because I love hearing it afresh, because it adds to my awareness and understanding. So this idea that repetitions are boring. Oh no, not at all, not at all. By the way, Emil, sir, just before we carrying on, to say, that I hear you in this when you said, oh, at first I said love, but then as I listened, I really understood how appropriateness is this. Well, I'm paraphrasing. Is this modifier? It changes it. It makes a difference. And I'm hearing that you shared that, and that's a very big deal to me. That you shared, that you shifted, you updated, and this is a very big deal. And it was something on my mind when I came into the session. How this one concept, how sometimes people, they come to that when we ask this question and they say, "This is my one concept." They get locked into it being their one concept, and they can't get away from it, and they can't hear other alternatives, and because it's that either or, right? So they can't give what the alternative, right? They can't give it any life or any even attention, because it means that mine is wrong. It doesn't mean that. So what you did was quite profound, Emosa, and not usual, in other words, and Elizabeth also. It's very profound. All right. So now let's go back to Elizabeth's alternative statement, and Lisa, read what I said there as if Elizabeth had said that. And let's hear commentary and discussion on that.
Well, still rewrote it in a different way with a different word, a different concept, and said,
yeah,
comparison appropriately applied has magical results.
Right.
Comparison.
Yeah, I mean, just for me to elaborate a little bit here before while you kind of think it over, right? Because we were talking about either or and the mentality of opposites. If something's not black, then it's automatically white. That's a comparativeness, right? And I call it the comparative mindset, right? Everybody's always comparing. So now we're also talking about appropriateness. So in that context, that's why when I was a little further away and I couldn't read clearly, a little bit small, I thought this is what Elizabeth was saying, right? Comparison appropriately applied, because it was right after we were talking about the black-white stuff. And so my mind just made that assumption there, which is a legitimate assumption considering the context, right? So, and I thought, wow, that's very profound. So I'm keen to hear more. Let's just assume that Elizabeth had said this, right, as something profound.
Well, just seeing you write it out with a different concept in front of the other words. So let's say blank, appropriately applied, has magical results. You could put any concept there, any concept. And if it's appropriately applied, it has the potential of a magical result.
Thank you. Thank you. I could not have articulated. I had a longer explanation, because but you just said it. Oh, blank appropriately applied as magical. That's what makes that sentence profound. And this is exactly what I wanted to illustrate. That's a fantastic way of doing it, Lisa. Oh, too brilliant. Awesome. 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 I mean, I could add that into the program as a quote, no?
With a capital A on appropriately.
Oh, of course, of course, of course, of course. Yes, yes. I just copied Elizabeth's thing and changed compassion to comparison. So yes, appropriately, capital A appropriately, and even capital A applied has capital M magical results. Yeah, that's how I would write it. But I'm a little partial to the capitalistics because they mean more to me. And when I say magical, it's not ordinary wizard magic. No, this is magic as in moreness, right? As moreness results, we could say moreness, magical. They very similar to me. Yeah, so that's why I also prefer moreness to magical, because magical has baggage. Moreness does not. Yeah, moreness is a pure term. I mean, moreness is, yes, I've never seen it before. I used it, but it's not me inventing a word like, I don't know. I can't even make up words. A klug. What the hell is klug? I have no idea what the klug is, or klug as a attitude or mindset. So it's just a made up word. But moreness is taking more and you're adding a suffix to it. That's just part of language. You can do this with anything. Helplessness, same thing, right? So it's perfectly valid. Well, at least you can make up words in any language. Language is a true democracy. You just have to get other people to accept it. If your word becomes popular enough, it gets added to the language, right? So, but moreness, when you're using words in these grammatical ways, it's not making up a new word. You just simply are using it in that particular way, right? So yeah, that's suffixes and prefixes. So it's very useful to understand this in language, right? So it's a particular connotation to it. So very cool, very cool. So I love this that you said anything appropriately applied as or yields magical results. This is the magic of appropriateness, correct? But it has to be capital A appropriateness, as you said. Very, very
Well,
powerful.
and as you were really kind of equating or like moreness with magic and in kind of a way, and to perhaps, you know, like 1 + 1 doesn't always equal 2 if it
Exactly.
equals, I mean, sometimes it can be a dimensional shift, and
Exactly.
that's kind of how I look at magic, because
Exactly.
magic takes it into another dimension, right? We think of
Yes.
magic as being
Yes.
something supernatural or
Yes.
potential.
Yes. So magic is supra contextual.
Ah, okay,
Yeah.
that's a good one. That's a good concept.
Instead of saying, you know, other dimensions or whatever, it's supra contextual. So again, you know, we have a cell phone. You go into a place where they've never seen cell phones, you got a magical device. No, it's just in my context, it makes total sense, industrial and all this, right? There it doesn't. So you just have to see it in the appropriate context. And likewise with things that we do regard as magic, you know, like I was saying, the gyroscopic effect, for instance. Yeah. I mean, when you demonstrate that, it's like, wow, man, that's really magical. But the scientist says, well, it's because of this and that, and you know, even they think it's magical, but still. So yeah, this is the power of the skill of context shifting. We have perspective shifting, yes, and as one of the nuanced consequences of perspective shifting, or the outflows, the connectivities to it, is context shifting, and it's an absolutely critical skill to understand capital C context, right? Capital C context is me standing, well, I am standing here in my kitchen, and I look at the drain in my sink there, and after I've let the dishwater out with all the dishwashing liquid in it, and it makes those bubbles that come bubbling up, right? Bubbles on top of bubbles, and it's this little mountain of bubbles. Now, when we are in our local context, we inside one of those little bubbles, and we've got other bubbles packed around us, and we may have a bubble inside our bubble, where our bubble may be inside another bubble, but there's also bubbles on the side, underneath, the top, all over, right? There's no sort of a neat pattern to those bubbles. They're just all agglomerated on top of each other there. Yeah, but when we look from it, when we see all the bubbles together, that's capital C context. The little c context is each individual bubble. This is a profoundly, profoundly, profoundly important understanding. I can't emphasize it enough. Yes. And this, in the connection of our one word, We could even have context as one word. Yes, but context automatically is going to bring in, well, appropriateness. Yes, I perceive the context, but what am I going to do now? When I say, what am I going to do? I bring in the other leg, which is motivation, intent, goal. And then those are the two legs that support appropriateness, right? You can't just have appropriateness on its own. It's not a solution. It's not a remedy, like here's your formula. No, here's your answer. No, it's a calculation. It's very important to understand with appropriateness. It's not an answer, it's a calculation, right? You have to actually go and take appropriateness and apply it. You've got to do a little bit of work with appropriateness, yes? Because you've got to say, what is the context that this applies in? Otherwise, different things you change the context, and what was appropriate in context A is inappropriate in context B. Oh, okay. Bathing suit in the office, right? My wonderful example. So this is, and then of course,
what's wrong
well,
with that?
Exactly. What's wrong with that? Exactly. If my motivation is to be disruptive, my motivation is to be unique, original, weird, then wearing my bathing suit to the office is utterly appropriate.
Or if you're a lifeguard.
Correct. And your office is the beach. Exactly. Yes.
No,
But
sorry, I didn't mean to dilute your little
oh, no, you didn't. You didn't. No, you added to it.
Yeah,
I
I
know you added
totally
profoundly.
understand what you're saying.
Well,
Yeah. So
your comment.
it's all about context.
Exactly. And your analogy of the lifeguard was so brilliant, because we went from the office and saying, well, all right, we sort of stretching this to make a bathing suit in the office appropriate. I never said the office was a building office. I just said office. And you said, well, if your office is the beach, if you're Pamela Anderson, well, okay, it's appropriate, yeah. It's a fantastic comment,
I
Lisa.
was about
It's
to make a
brilliant.
bubble joke, but I won't.
Please do. No. You can't tease us with a joke. Sorry.
Oh no,
Yeah.
no. In relation to Pamela Anderson, and I'm just going to leave it there. Yeah.
Okay. Bubbles and inside bubbles. Yes. Yes. Layered bubbles.
But while
yes.
you were talking about the bubbles conversation,
Very funny.
I was thinking also of like planets or bubbles, right? They're
Exactly.
bubbles floating out, and when you zoom out and look at the whole universe, that's how it's impossible to get the full context. So in reality, or everybody is in a bubble, and that there's actually a some schools of thought call it a ring past knot, which means, like you reach the edge of your bubble from the inside. You reach the end of the ring, and you can't go beyond it, because you simply do not have any context at all from which to understand it.
Exactly. And this is what we are engaged in these discussions. Because when we share this, we are sharing concepts, all those concepts that go in your dictionary of power, concepts which enable and give you the tools for perceiving your bubble from outside of your bubble. Yeah, just takes one concept sometimes. That's all it takes. And suddenly, oh. For instance, the concept of the superiority paradigm. If I'm happily going along my life, la 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 la, life is wonderful. I'm just in my own bubble. Yeah, things are wonderful. Everything is awesome. Everything is great. Life is good. They say, oh, you're living in a superiority paradigm. Huh? What do you mean? What's a superiority paradigm? Oh, I know what a paradigm is. I know what superiority is. I never heard those two put together. Well, I'm a thoughtful person. I can think through. I'm not wildly intelligent, but I do have patience, and I do have thoroughness, and I have some persistence. So I'll figure this out. Okay. So let me apply my patience and my thoroughness and my diligence, and let's see if I can figure out what superiority paradigm means. Well, a paradigm, first of all, says this is the entire reach and limit and scope of your particular bubble. But it's a paradigm by implication is the default bubble that applies to everyone, right? It's a communal bubble, and and it's the communal stretch. Like, for instance, we could say the paradigm in terms of nature is atmosphere, right? Or nature. Nature has its own rules. Things grow, sunlight, all that stuff. That's the paradigm. It's the operating system, not the program. My bubble is the program on my computer. The paradigm is the operating system. Ah, oh, okay. Operating system. All right. So, yeah, so I get it. Oh, well, actually, when I think of operating systems, well, you got Windows, you got Mac, and they are different. Well, not wildly different. They sort of both use Windows, actually. All right, they're more or less the same. So even though they're different, they're still operating on the same paradigm, more or less, right? Okay. Well, I understand what a paradigm is. Oh, wow. Okay, cool. But now let's add superiority to that. Uh, you mean a paradigm in which superiority is paramount, is important, and always
Well,
there?
like for example, Macintosh is better than PC,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
right? I mean, isn't that
It's a
like
belief.
that's a right, so here you have the superiority complex.
Exactly.
Mac users,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
there are a lot of them
Right.
honestly can even be snobby about using a
Oh,
PC. Oh
oh,
no, I
right,
use
right,
a Mac.
right. Exactly. And this was part of Apple's advertising when it first started. I mean, today actually, on an objective level, purely on statistics and all of this, PCs have surpassed Macs. There's no question anymore, right? But when Macs first started, they had superior graphics. And this was their big claim to. So they appealed to all the graphic artists and people like that, right? People who used computers in some kind of a creative way, architects, whatever. And of course, these people they pitched this as being superior, and they appealed to the ego, and they absolutely cultivated the snobbiness, which gave them a foothold. And it still lasts to this day, even today, that you can take every specification of the typical Mac and compared to a PC, and no comparison. Sorry, it just isn't. It just is objectively better, but that attitude still persists, and it's amazing. It's amazing manipulation through superiority. In other words, why? Because Apple understands the superiority paradigm, and they realize that people have been brought up to say, I need to be superior in some way. I have to be superior in some way. This is important. It's necessary. That's the problem with the paradigm. It doesn't give you other options. It forces you to evaluate things through that lens and that lens only. You could say it's like you were an artist and you only had red shades to paint with. And sometimes, I mean, if you do, monocolor paintings, they can be really and truly wonderfully beautiful. But, in all shades of red or blue or whatever the particular mono thing is, right? This is just too wonderful. However, because other colors, you see that this is really cool to you. But if that's all you ever had, you'd always be seeing everything as some flavor of red, right? If that was your paradigm. Not cool. Yes, not cool. So to understand that the superiority paradigm is something that we don't even know is there, and we inadvertently subscribe to it or adhere to it or have inadvertent influence from it, it's a terrible thing, right? Because when you're making your choice as an artist and all is red, well, if I'm a true narcissist, then it's like pillar box red and all that stuff, right? And lipstick red and all that. No. Or if I'm kind of gentle and mellow, well, I'm more down there in the pinks and stuff like this, yeah? So, but it's still a limited range of option. You know what I mean? It's just more or less of the same thing. It doesn't mean it's something different, right? And that's the problem with paradigms, especially like superiority. It's more or less of the same thing. Yeah, it's very
More or
hard
less.
to morelessness. Morelessness. Yeah, I just love these things that are apparently random that pop out of you, Lisa. I love them. I love them. They're not so random as they might seem. But yeah, more or less. Yes. When we understand that more and less coexist and they don't necessarily contradict, we get this profound term in our dictionary of power. That is a paradigm shifting term, and that is coexisting contradictions.
Oh, I love coexisting contradictions.
They're fantastic.
They're endless, and they're so fascinating because they're very revealing, and they do pop you. They easily pop you into this,
Exactly.
into zooming out and
Right.
seeing,
They force you
seeing
to
more
zoom
of
out.
it.
Exactly,
Mhm.
because on this contradiction, you've got A and B, or 0 and 1. 0 is true in that bubble in the sink coming out. In one little bubble, 0 is true. The bubble right next door to it, 1 is true. When I look from the outside, I see all those bubbles. I see 0, 1. I see all the different numbers, and they're all coexisting at the same time. Yeah, they're all coexisting in that little agglomeration of bubbles. Right. That's how you can have coexisting contradictions, because they each exist in their own separate bubbles and realities. Now, where I saw this first was from studying and observing narcissists.
Ah,
So yeah, this is really fantastic. So narcissism, typically, especially like narcissists who've been this for a long time now, right? I mean, they're adult narcissists already, because they jumped early in their lives to this idea, I'm fantastic, I'm wonderful, and then they sort of, at least from like their parents or whoever may have said to them they're fantastic or wonderful, but then they sort of grew up a little bit and realized, well, not actually so. But they didn't want to give up that lure, that thrill that they got from all this attention. So they kept the pretense of being fantastic and wonderful, and they stopped learning. So they keep BSing, I'm fantastic, I'm wonderful, which is what typically narcissism is, and they don't actually learn, right? So now you get this vast distinctions between their surface personality, what they putting out into the world, and the realness inside. Coexisting contradiction, right? One is a 2-year-old, literally, it's never grown up from that stage, or 3 or 4, whatever, right? And the other one is this narcissist, coexisting contradiction. But here's the thing that I saw, how I noticed this, not from that. I noticed that they held beliefs of action, actual real world action, that completely contradicted it themselves. Because here's what would happen, right? So because they have these already bubble personalities and they shift between them, they develop this tendency, this ability to completely immerse inside a bubble. And of course, if you're a narcissist, when you're inside a bubble, you just accept, well, this is me. So of course, it makes sense. Well, it's my thoughts, right, that arrogance. So when they're in a bubble and something makes sense inside the bubble, they don't question it. It makes sense to me, and I'm sensible, I'm wonderful, I'm just king of the world. So of course it makes sense. And of course it is sensible. So it doesn't matter that it's only makes sense within the bubble. So they make a decision based on this understanding of what makes sense in the bubble. So okay, in the bubble, whatever it was, and said, well, I'm going to go out and go to location A. Makes sense, right? Then they shift into another bubble, and in that bubble, something makes sense relative to that bubble, and they make a decision based on what makes sense there, which is tomorrow at 10 o'clock, I have to go to location B. Yeah. And it's completely contradicts the earlier one, which says tomorrow at 10 o'clock, I have to go to location A. But they will talk to you, and they will say, okay, yeah, tomorrow we're going to go to location A. And a little while later, they'll say, go to location B. And they don't hear to themselves that they were saying two things which are diametrically opposed, cannot coexist. Yeah, but they did exist to them. And I saw them get into trouble because of this all the time. And then they're like, yeah, but how did this happen? And of course, they can't imagine that, well, it's because of their narcissism. I couldn't have possibly made a mistake. So then they blame it on something else. And it's this whole convoluted mess. But I saw this time and time again, how they would make these decisions within these separate bubbles in the different contexts. And sometimes they would clash and contradict. And it's like, man, they never updated from it. It caused them lots of hassle. It's fascinating. But now when we take that, and that's sort of the negative application of coexisting contradiction. But on a sophisticated say, we could have, for instance, trust without trusting. You go on a first date, right? What do most people do? Well, either you trust completely or you distrustful, and then the date collapses. But if you're too trusting, you can also get into trouble, right? If you give too much trust. And I don't know many people who've gone on dates, right? I happen to know more women than men, and this is a topic that's come up many, many times. And they say, "Wow, yeah, I was too trusting, and because I was too trusting, I missed all the red flags, and I got into trouble." Right? But then they'll also say, "Yeah, but you know what? If I was suspicious, then the date wouldn't have gone anywhere at all." And that happened to me other times too. I never could have any dates because I was always too suspicious, and so they have this problem. They can't date. That's where trust without trusting came from solving this dating dilemma. Trust without trusting. Does it make sense? Beena, Lisa?
Yes. Yes.
Lisa?
That's
Where'd Lisa go? Where'd
Lisa
Lisa?
is stirring her dog food on the stove, and I didn't want you to
Oh,
have
oh,
to hear all the noises.
oh, that's all right.
But yes, it does make
Yeah.
sense.
I
Of
mean,
course.
can you relate personally from when you think way back when you were dating, how if you'd had trust without trusting, you would have given some trust, but not completely. You would have had those doubts a little bit. You would have trusted suspiciously, another coexisting contradiction. You'd have trusted a bit suspiciously, but you're still trusting, but you're just open to that it might not go. So you're getting the best of both, right? You're using the best of trust, and you're getting the best of distrust, right? And that would have
Well,
really
it's
given you
almost
some
like you
discernment.
can't operate in the world without that. You can't operate on a day-to-day basis without trust,
Exactly.
without trusting.
Exactly.
It's
Exactly. It's impossible.
required because you
Exactly.
don't know from one moment
Exactly.
to the next. You have to
Exactly.
trust
Exactly.
without trusting.
And in the theme of what we've been saying about bubbles and about contradictions, yes, and this is coexisting contradictions. If you're in that either or mindset, all right, that jumps. I call it mentality of opposites, which says that everything is an opposite, and if it's not one thing, then it must be the other. If you're in that, you vacillate between either trusting, and your trust can be too much and inappropriateness, or distrusting, which can again be inappropriate, right? I mean, how do you do a business deal if you go into distrust? You're never going to have any negotiation. If you go into a business deal completely trusting, well, you're going to get taken advantage of. Yeah. Same in a relationship. So coexisting contradictions is a life-changing concept. And I'm utilizing this to go zoom up one layer again, right? Where this started, when I was saying about this idea of one concept and how it can change your life. Now, this isn't the one concept, it's just simply a concept that is profoundly life-changing. And to the point that we were on was about tools that can take us out of our paradigm, coexisting contradictions or collaborative conundrums, as Erica Empowered calls them. I love that too. It's a third one, and I don't remember now, but it will come. Also with C's, a collaborative conundrum. It's a conundrum, but they collaborate. Oh, they work together. Trust without trusting. Collaborative conundrum. Seems like a conundrum, but it's not really, because they're collaborating and they give you more. I just love that, right? So, but the point I'm making, sorry, I'm getting a little off again from the point I'm making is that one concept there shifts you out of the paradigm you were in when it came to dating or doing business deals. Yeah. You now jump to say, wow, there's other ways I can do this. There's other ways I can do. Oh, I don't have to accept the default of either or. Oh, wow. Suddenly you went from black and white to a world of color. Yeah.
Yes. So I was wondering, I came on the chat late, but did you guys start out with any kind of reading or quotes, or did you just start getting in conversation today?
We started off with Beena sharing what was so profound to her. Something happened and changed her life.
Okay.
And
I
it
got it.
just went from there. So Beena, since that got broken up, let's hope your connection lasts this time. Could you share it again, please? We'll start with it and end with it.
Yes.
Only if you want. Okay.
Yes, definitely.
That's
I'm not
implied.
going to
Yes,
do
that's
that. Yes.
implied. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Sorry,
It
sorry.
is
Can I?
actually
So,
good.
Beena, let me
You
just.
mentioned that.
I have to pause you there.
Yes.
Only if you want. In this context of this moreness environment, this is an absolute understood given. There's no way I assume that you would ever do anything you don't want. I give you this deep respect and trust that you are capital T trust, that always you're going to do only if you want. Doesn't matter if I ask, if you don't want to do, you just say no. No problem.
This is exactly what I was about to say, that okay, sometimes we just take for granted that in our communication we just don't assume things in that way, that okay, oh, I have to do something. No, I will not do this if I don't want to. But it becomes so regular for us, so that we don't mention that. Thank you for reminding, because it is helping me to be more deliberate about that. Anyway, one more thing I want to share, that because before you were explaining, Sil, that why sometimes, like, okay, I'm sharing the same thing, saying the same thing, what you have been saying. Today, actually, I was not able to hear what you were saying. So you just asked me that, okay, share. And I just shared what I was thinking about. I didn't hear a single word from you. So yes, that might be the repetition in some way. So I had no idea what you were saying before. Anyway, so I was in a situation where I was communicating with two more people, person, and during that communication, it's a different kind of a relation. It's very more professional than personal, but we do have good rapport between us. And one new person also entered into that. So three of us, we were communicating, and then suddenly something happened, and the new person, who is not much aware of who I am and how I actually do things, or my way of being. So he, or like, they just initiate some conversation, and they say something which they want to say, but they involve me into this without asking me. I was not aware of it. There was no understanding prior to that, and they just involve that, okay, we are saying something. First thing, even for them, it was inappropriate, because it was like kind of asking for a favor or something. Um, and the second thing, that they involve me into this without asking me. So the first thing, I just feel that, oh, it's invasion of my boundaries. How can you assume something and just involve me into something which I have no idea and I'm not subscribing to. Okay, this idea is completely no me. I tried to just diffuse that situation. At least I just said, okay, let's talk something else. And I just divert the conversation towards something. But that thing was not right for me. I was feeling that do something about that. And I did. I just write down things, and I just told them that, okay, this is something I don't subscribe. This is, and it was without my permission. They didn't ask me. I had no idea. On top of that, this whole thing was inappropriate on itself, and including me is something I don't do that. But I did without being awkward and without being rude. It's a fine balance you have to find when you have to be really adamant about something, especially, of course, stating your boundaries without being rude and awkward. Why I'm emphasizing this on awkward? Because I realize that it's us, it's on me, that how I cue other people. When I'm not comfortable with who I am, when I'm not comfortable, I don't have peace of being, I don't have clear boundaries, then I reflect my awkwardness to others. So it's not that, it's not up to them that they are awkward and they are trying to invade my boundaries. It is my own uncomfortableness with that, my own awkwardness, which projects on others. And we are kind of yes, at some degree we are responsible for that, how we cue other people. Because if I'm awkward, I will try to give explanation for that, I will go into detail, I will try to justify that, I will try to justify my actions and all sort of things, and that cues other people that there is some sort of, you can say that, a side way to go with that. And the mindset who just, okay, it is something very common, that opportunistic kind of mindset. They are looking for, they always look for some sideways where they can make their way. So if we try to give them justification, not because they are asking, but just because we are awkward, so we give them, we provide them that opportunity to find that way to just go back to that same thing again. And then of course we get trapped into. But this is something I just realized that no, that's not going to happen, because I just cover all the points and that's it. And there was a very, very clear and precise thing. The second thing, again, was for me the insight about the self-awareness, that I have to be adamant about a few things in our life, in my life, because otherwise it's a dishonesty. We get fell into this idea that to avoid ego or any superiority paradigm mindset, we have to go into a complete opposite direction and go really on other extreme. Inadvertent ego still calls it, or subtle ego, in other words, with just another way of virtually bragging about my goodness. Look how humble I am. Still, you're mute.
I'm just saying, yeah, wow, huge point, huge point. Keep going, keep
this
going.
this virtual bragging that, okay, look how good I am. I'm just nothing. I'm just saying that I'm just giving you all the respect and all these things. It's a dishonesty, because I'm not actually projecting and reflecting the real me. So
Yes.
not only that we should not get into the ego paradigm or superiority paradigm, but also we cannot allow ourselves to go into the opposite extreme and just like, okay, yes, too humble and try to be so good, so comfortable for others and give them a wrong idea. So again, it is about being deliberate and taking full responsibility of my life in my hands, on myself, that whatever I'm projecting out has to be precise and accurate. Not only true, but it has to be accurate and precise. And that
Wow.
awareness was a big, big deal for me.
That is huge.
Well,
You're my hero.
Oh,
at least it's not being facetious or making a joke there.
oh.
Oh, mine too. As are you, Lisa. Yeah.
Well, I'll laugh at
As
that
is,
one.
oh no.
But
Oh no.
no,
Oh
really,
no. Oh
Beena,
no. Oh no.
that's so difficult for me to do
Well,
what you did. And and you're
What?
right about, well, like taking a stance and being very deliberate with someone. I would probably tend to just either brush it off,
Mhm.
uh, or maybe look awkward in my response if it really meant a lot to me. Like, but to come off just forthright and calm, and but yet also, as you say you did, non-confrontational, and making sure that they weren't awkward about your response to the best of your ability. I mean, it's it just shows such a strength of character.
Now you said
It
would.
took a lot of effort and practice and deliberateness to be there. That's why I'm just sharing, because it was a huge deal for me. It was not easy. It was not something I was just doing regularly. I've been very careless about the boundary and stating my boundaries, and I was so awkward with that. Why I'm continuously emphasizing on awkwardness, because sometimes you say, okay, yes, so no, we just say that in a way that it is like coming out with the burst of energy, because we are leveraging that energy, and it comes out in a more of kind of angry way, kind of inappropriate way. Actually, we don't need to be. When we are comfortable with our own self, when we know that we are deliberately trying to be impeccable, and we have done our everything at as best as our capabilities and according to our awareness at this moment, then we don't need to be awkward. It was like just duh for me. And that comfort with stating my boundary is a real achievement for me. So when I was sharing, I was also celebrating. It was not an easy job, almost impossible in the past for me.
Oh. I just
Can
want
I
to add
ask
some.
a question? Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, it's important to because it's overview framework. Just to be clear, this happened, and then there was a delay. Beena didn't respond in real time. She didn't like
That
it.
was exactly what I was going to ask. Well, how much
Okay.
time went
I
by?
respond immediately because I deliberately digressed and redirected the conversation, because that was in my consideration also, that the new person in conversation is younger. Okay, first of all, and second, they are not very experienced. Though I was actually feeling that BMNS, that okay, yes, just involve others to cover yourself up and then try to make your way with this sneaky way. I was feeling that, but still, but the immediate response was just to digress the conversation. But then of course, I took time and then I said, okay, but I was not feeling um, comfortable till I made it clear. And the moment I did that, that was a done thing. After that, I was in conversation with them. And for me, it was exactly like before the incident. Absolutely okay, joyful, and all that. And on top of that, I get some appreciation for stating my clear boundaries and compliments for the honesty. And I'm getting all these things, and I'm perceiving it as because I was comfortable with that. If I would not be, then it will definitely going to create friction, resistance, all
But to
sort of
be
awkwardness.
Beena, to be very clear, right? So you had the day the incident happened. In that moment, during this conversation, this interaction,
Mhm.
you kind of diverted it and you ameliorated. You didn't respond in the appropriate way right immediately. Then a day or two later, you
No, no,
thought
no,
about
not
it.
day or two later. It happened in the morning, and then of course I came, and then it was few hours
Oh,
delay.
okay,
Yes,
okay. Oh, I wasn't
yes,
sure how long it was. All right, but
yes.
it
It was
was
a
there was
delay.
a gap. There was a gap,
There
and
was a
then you
gap
came.
of
Yeah.
like 3 or 4 hours
Oh, oh
actually.
wow. Okay. Oh, okay.
Yes,
Oh, brilliant. All right,
but
all right.
I didn't ameliorate. Yes, you can say that. Yes, yes, I agree. So I
Yeah.
just digress that because I was not subscribing to that idea. Absolutely not. But again, it was like, okay, how can you be compassionate and care about others and still be completely honest in these type of particular situation? That was the question. It was
Repeat the
not like,
question.
okay, how can you be appropriately honest and also compassionate towards others?
Ah,
So though they were not asking, they were not
yeah,
subscribing for the compassion from my side,
yeah.
but still it was my own thinking that, okay, if I would do that, it might uh, not only ruin the day, but might um, actually shatter their trust, self-trust. So I didn't respond in that way. I did care about them, but then of course, self-love, self-respect, impeccability, honesty, self-honesty, or everything was just looking at me like, yes, Veena, compassion is a profound gesture, but what about us? Where is your self-honesty? Where is your self-respect? Where is your impeccability? So we cannot just be compassionate at the cost of impeccability
At the
and
cost of our
self-honesty.
inner integrity, in other words.
Exactly, exactly. We
So,
cannot be.
interesting. So, in your case, in this particular case, lack of compassion appropriately applied had magical results.
Kind of, but was it appropriate
Uh,
compassion or lack of compassion?
Appropriate. Oh, okay.
yes,
Instead of compassion appropriately,
Yes.
appropriate compassion.
Yes,
Exactly.
it was appropriate
Aha.
compassion, because if I would not have a compassion, I would just think about my own integrity, then I would immediately respond directly that, okay, sorry, you
Yeah.
are not entitled to do this, and you
Yeah.
how you can just uh, pull me into this thing.
Yeah.
You never
Yeah.
asked me, and
Yeah.
all these things.
Yeah.
I could say that without being angry, without being rude. But it was an appropriate compassion that I digressed the conversation at that time.
Mm.
And then after 3 or 4 hours, I just go there again in my first available. And I said, okay, sorry, this is something, this happened. And I don't subscribe to this. And it's a violation of my boundaries. So I
Yeah.
would highly appreciate uh, these things to not happen again.
Was
So
this in
this
a
is,
work environment?
yes,
Mhm.
kind of.
Okay.
So, but
Uh,
it was a bit of personal also. For me, why I was sharing, I shared with Sil, and because I have been practicing this with him. I have been asking him that how to actually do this. I was not actually never been in any environment where like real bullying or all these things. But yes, I have seen, I have experienced manipulation many times in my life, especially in professional environment when it
mm.
comes to any professional matter.
Wow. Wow. Very profound. Very profound. Very, very profound. Also, in this context here, the compassion, if you take this, if you were to just respond directly, what that person did is, well, in one sense, rude, and in another sense, it was completely manipulative to say, well, me and Beena, that's what they said. And they included you in something inappropriate, which you would never do on your own, ever. Right? It's
Never,
just out of
never,
the
ever.
question. Right?
Absolutely.
Me and Beena. But if you'd said, hey, wait a second, I would never do that. You're going to put them in a very awkward situation. Basically, they're
Exactly.
gonna have egg on their face in this. Now, that
Yes.
might, you could say, well, they deserved it, but it's because it's a work. You got to continue working. You could have caused now confrontation, conflict, and ongoing things. However, you are saying that's one aspect of it. Yes, the other aspect is that I'm going to be compromised. So what you did here was escape out of this mentality of opposites, and you found a way to satisfy and have a coexisting contradiction in which you were able to tell them, yes, it's inappropriate, and not let them lose too much face and have it become a confrontation, and where they have to have all this justification and logic. Yes, I did all right, right, and cause a problem. And also, you didn't. You were able to let them know it was inappropriate without disrupting the future ongoing work relationship. You improved it, not made it worse, because
Yes.
you said, I need to satisfy the compassion of not letting them be completely discombobulated too much, although I can't be, if they're going to feel a little bit bad, well, that's appropriate because it wasn't appropriate what they did. But then they don't have to ruin the whole relationship and feel terribly bad. At the same time, I can't let them feel okay at the cost of me. Right? So I have to have compassion for me too. And you
Well,
merge
and
those
then
two.
it all depends on what it was that happened too. I guess I take it then that whatever was said in front of other
Yeah,
people, that you didn't feel as if they walked
yeah,
away with
yeah,
an
yeah.
inappropriate opinion of the
Right.
situation that affected you. Because since you approached him later in private, the other people, they're still under the impression that you were on board with this guy.
Okay, no, actually, I just made it clear for everyone, and I shared that same message with the
Ah, okay.
with all the people who were involved in that conversation, because that was appropriate. This is something it was so much onto me to take the full responsibility to make myself and my self-conception clear to them, and also the idea they have in their mind, because it is going to change that. Sometimes in a friendly way, in a friendly conversation, people do give a bit of wrong idea, like, okay, oh, I was just pulling your leg for that reason. But actually what they are doing is trying to tune or yes, trying to edit, you can say that, your perception on others. And this is a manipulation. We have to find this difference between the friendly lag pulling each other and all the teasing each other, and actually tarnishing your perception on others. And it's a fine line between that. And what I did, it was not only yes, it might seem like that, okay, I'm very adamant about these things, but also I was taking care of that person for the future. Right now, what they have learned, it is going to stay with them, and it will protect them for future consequences.
An example of this, Beena,
Yeah.
me and Lisa would love it if you invited us to come and live with you.
Oh, why not? Just come. Yeah.
Oh,
My
is that how
example
you really
flopped.
feel?
My example flopped. My example flopped. Well,
What is this
well,
in that?
well,
No
I was
problem.
using, Beena, you're supposed to say, well, all right, my example flopped. Now, imagine if this was an inappropriate thing that I wanted was to not come and stay with you, but live with you like forever. But Beena's so open, she says, this is. So I was trying to use an example of something inappropriate. Yeah, major fail, major fail. but,
Okay. Okay,
but I
because
think, hang on a second. Sorry, I want to just get to Lisa because that was for Lisa. Because Lisa was asking what the example of this was, right? So that was an example of what this other person did. And see, I just included you there, Lisa. In let's say I wanted to get invited to live forever with Beena, and so I said, well, me and Lisa would love it if you invited us to live with you forever. I just roped you in, Lisa, but you might say, hey, wait a second, so I never ever asked Beena to come and live with her forever. That's kind of inappropriate. Yes,
Well,
Yes.
Lisa.
Beena said that it was okay if you and I went and
I
lived
know. That's
together.
why I said that Babina completely just shot my whole analogy to smithereens there. Yeah, yeah. Mutilated my analogy. So, but you get the point though, Lisa. I hope you get the.
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
Oh
yes.
yeah.
Okay.
yeah.
Because I had
It's too
friends,
brilliant.
some
But
Chinese friends living in my house. They just came. They didn't have that, so they said, "Okay, we are living." And I said, "Okay, so come." So they were living in my house. So it was like, okay, duh, no
yeah,
problem. When you said that, I didn't get this idea completely.
yeah,
But exactly, Sil, your analogy is very precise, actually. Without
yeah,
going into any specific, this is the most closest one, that just including someone else, and just to cover yourself.
yeah.
The intent was to not taking the blame or the responsibility of what inappropriate question or something they were asking, but including be into that, like, okay, yes, Beena in a different position. And if she is also into this, then of course it becomes the norm,
Right,
which
right,
is
right, right.
no, not,
Yeah,
not going to happen.
yeah, yeah,
Uh, it
yeah.
Well,
was like a
hidden
good
in
experience, but also it was a mind conditioning. We get like, okay, when we subvert
hmm
the norms, still we are having this again, because the culture, the environment, or
Yeah.
what is the word for that? I'm just missing a word. With the kind of people they are
Mm.
mostly spending their time, it's a normal thing for them, so that it becomes okay. When you are just saying these things, it becomes okay for them, which is
Yes,
not okay for
yeah,
me.
yeah. The word for that from that what Cher was sharing, right?
Yes,
Acclimation, not
yes,
acclimatizing. That's a different word. Acclimation.
yes,
So when
yes.
we acclimate to this, we tend to normalize. That's what acclimation is. You normalize something that's inappropriate, and that's not a good idea, right?
and
We
and
can,
what I
yeah.
why sorry to interrupt yourself. How
Oh,
I was able to do that, because I got this idea from the capital R reading, because we are getting into real detail and just actually exploring every single word, every single tense, why you use that, why it is this, in this particular way, why the language is there, how it has been presented, everything. So when we apply this capital R reading into any situation or any incident in our life, we get this ultra motion view of that particular incident. Like, okay, we just go by one to all the details, what was the vocabulary they were using, what was the tone at that time, what was the situation, how they were pulling in at what time, everything. And then you can actually see the nuance of the manipulation,
Yes,
how they were
yes,
building up that trap, that, okay, yes,
yes.
okay, this is how it is. uh, Awkward, unnecessary chuckles, and okay, just pulling you in like we are just friends. Okay, even if in professional life your relationship is not equal, your status is not equal, but just trying to sneak in that way was a really great learning experience for me.
You pulled out your shadow lion.
Yes.
Yes, exactly, exactly,
Yes.
exactly.
Yes.
And also, to go a little deeper, would you say that the way you satisfied both stating your boundaries, which is really your boundaries were violated, and you made it clear that no, and also you communicated that what is something that others may take for granted as well. Everybody does this, so but no, sorry,
Yeah.
everybody does not to do this. Not everybody, and also you allowed the person to essentially get out of their transgression with
Yes.
minimal loss of face, damage, ego bruising, conflict, disruption of
Yes.
work, and all that. So you
Yes.
combined all these various factors. Would you say that is an application of capital D diplomacy as we define it?
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. I can
yeah,
say that in a very sophisticated way from my side, the application of
yes,
capital diplomacy,
yes,
because human are the most important and the most inspiring creature and the most inspiring thing in my life, because I really do get inspired by people. They are the most important thing in my life. I never deliberately try to make them feel bad about themselves or
exactly.
about anything. So they are always on priority, always on priority in any situation. Even if I don't have a good relationship with them, it's still I will choose people on my ego, on my yes, some other things, but not on my integrity. Sorry, this is
Exactly, exactly.
yes,
That's what I was going to say. People
yes,
are prime, but you cannot prioritize others over your own integrity.
yes,
Yes,
no,
Miss Brownie eating lover, and the one you didn't eat is the best one.
yes.
Avina wrote a story about this, which if you have time, Lisa, I know we're going long today, but we're in the thick of this, and I don't want to let it go because it's just such a huge point. Beena, can we read that story? If you have
Oh,
time, Lisa.
yes, please.
She has it available.
Oh yeah,
Okay,
oh
that
yeah,
Oh,
sounds
yes.
good.
oh yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so
Lisa's still behind on one where I said, "Oh, Beena's going to read a poem," and then Beena never got to read a poem. So now, all right, you're going to read your story instead. Yeah,
It's okay. It's completely okay and fine by me.
I know. There's nuance. There's nuance to everything. The other point is in this, right? From a capital D diplomacy point of view, and we're going to get into capital D diplomacy. I've got a whole separate program on capital D diplomacy, part of the Moreness-Project.
Oh, this is
And
so amazing program to do
yeah,
that.
it's wonderful. Now, of course, the new nobility, as we're going to see in the story, their usage of capital diplomacy isn't just something that they do as a matter of their predilection. It's part of their business, actually. Right? The new nobility corporation is the de facto diplomacy arm of the agglomeration. So when the planets have squabbles or whatever, they come to the new nobility because, of course, honesty and integrity, this is, I mean, you just know this is part of the whole deal. So they make ideal diplomats. And because they are so skilled and they're so profoundly honest, they get hired to be diplomats, but particularly this capital D diplomacy. And it's so nuanced, it's so layered, it's so sophisticated. All right, please read, Beena.
Yes,
Please read.
and we are still going to be live with this.
Yes, yes, yes,
Okay,
yes.
okay. So the title of the story is "The Brownie I Didn't Eat, I Enjoyed the Most." I assume everyone's heart smiles, remembering the last time they had that gooey smoothness of fudge brownies. Hmm. And a coffee touching the perfection of warmth, a perfect blend like a subtle melancholy in romance. I love brownies. I mean, I truly love them, not addicted to them. They are a metaphor for special moments only. Let's move forward in the now and have a sneak peek into my world. Karachi, my city, whatever number, the wonder of the world, well, you can fill in any number of your choice. After having power shutdowns, the new proud presentation from our local authorities is gas shutdown. Yes, unannounced and with no indication of recovery at all. We are blessed in Pakistan, gas is included in basic amenities and all our cooking appliances run on gas. Um, it was a month of Ramadan when I was actually writing this story. So, anyway, in Ramadan, it's a cultural tradition to invite family and friends for iftar, the first meal for breaking our fast. Why not call it breakfast? I don't know. We had a few guests for iftar and dinner, and all the possible preparation was done. But just a couple of hours before iftar, gas shuts down. It was panicking everyone. To serve 12 people, we need to arrange food. All the nearby bakeries and food shops were out of stock because the neighborhood was quicker than us. Ordering online was the only option. My sister Amy was searching online options. I was busy making smoothies. I don't know why, but I assume that Amy is giving an order to one of my favorite bakery and asked her to order a fudge brownie for me. Obviously, she said okay, and I turned back. But when I was turning back, the realization kicked in. What you have just said, Beena? Do you really understand what you have done right now? I mean, are you fully aware of? I know for you there is nothing wrong, special, or anomalous in asking to order a brownie. But for me, it was like crossing a threshold of living only in the appropriate world and the world of freedom, freedom of being. Stopped right there in the middle of the room. I was talking to myself. In a split second, a whole movie of my life was projecting in my mind, slide after slide. So many emotions, suppressed feelings, deliberate self unawareness, emotional numbness in a disguise of being practical, inadvertent ego, wearing the attire of sacrifice, all were dancing in a circle on the screen of my mind. And me, I was standing in the middle of the circle, stunned by the intense spinning and swirling of all of my own feelings and emotions. Asking for something other than a pressing need was not being part of my life since I don't know when. I really don't remember when and how I learned to not say or ask for my wants and start living
Mm,
in and with the needs only. My
mm,
life was not miserable, neither I was happy. Actually, I forgot what happiness was. It was all just being appropriate, being accepted or fitting in. I was accepted by everyone. Like, who will not accept anyone who will always adjust without even mentioning? Instead, make them feel like they were doing me a favor. It was nothing bad or mean of others because it was my choice and I was getting some value, subconsciously feeling good about myself. Satisfied with the life I was living? No. I was surviving with the best minimum possible. What once was a choice gradually turned into a habit, and later, this is who I am. Once I attach my identity, it becomes my life story or my life. My mind gets attuned to making choices of any kind based only on what is available, what is possible, and what will make others happy.
mm,
Well, I was standing there, virtually circled by dancing feelings and emotions. I was showered with tons of self awareness. Trying to voluntarily adjust, fitting in causes people pleasing, and people pleasing cause and is also created by low self esteem, lack of self trust, and assumptions, which is a projection of our subtle, on surface, but deep rooted ego. Unaware of all these, I was a nice girl in my mind and harmless to everyone. Interesting term, harmless, isn't it? Just give me a bit of thing because I didn't think
Yeah,
it through.
I love that
yeah,
word, harmlessness. Yeah.
yeah. You were reading the unedited version. Yes, I was.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
I just realized that. Okay. Unaware of all of this, I was a nice girl in my mind and harmless to everyone. Interesting term, harmless, isn't it? We assume our wants or are going to result in the sacrifice of someone else's needs.
Repeat
Or
that,
I
please.
don't,
Repeat that, please. Repeat that, please.
we assume our wants are going to result in the sacrifice of someone else's needs. Or I don't deserve this. This is too much to ask. It's a waste of energy, money, resources, etc. Or if it involves other, then it will stress them. They will not do this. They will think of me as not good, etc. And the most common, I am the one who needs to, has to take care of everything and everyone. On the surface, all these arguments are good, but we have to be mindful of the difference between mind conditioning and being authentic, as well as knowing how want and need are different.
Mm,
Our
mm, mm,
decisions
mm.
have to be deliberate, a well thought through to the end choice, not something to be liked, to fit in, to get external validations, or out of fear of rejection, or because of inadvertent ego. I was a people pleaser for so many reasons, including not causing stress to others, which I had used in an attempt to heal my own wounds. In my mind, I was taking care. I was letting them have what I wanted, or sometimes even in my mind, even needed. Living in my nice girl bubble, completely unaware of the huge impact on my self conception. And most important, I was oblivious to what and how many assumptions were affecting others and my relationship with them and with myself. Was my niceness good or doing any good to anyone, including myself? No, absolutely not. In fact, it was creating an illusion of someone I was not, and the illusion of others who they were not. Can any illusion be good and beneficial for anyone in the long term? Of course not. Layer after layer, I was solidifying that illusion of me and others by the inner talk of I should, and thereby getting distant from my true self. Sometimes awareness transformation can be subtle or invisible, even. I experienced my life transformation in a few seconds only, without anyone being aware of it. Of course, I had been working on myself for a few years. The details are very long, story told anyway. But the ribbon cutting ceremony was waiting for this very moment when I finally stepped out of the only need realm to this new free and happy dimension. Life happened as usual around me, family and guests chatting and cracking jokes about the situation, also waiting for the food delivery and the prayer call to break fast. My sister telling me there was no brownie available. But my life had changed, entirely changed in that moment. My heart and soul were smiling, and for the first time ever, I was a bit convinced by Deepak Chopra's inner smile concept. I was feeling life as smooth as melted chocolate, as sweet as fudge, and as effortless as sipping coffee. That missed brownie, that first comfortable want, gave me exactly what I had been missing in my chocolatey life.
Yeah.
Yes, the end.
Oh, wow. You know what? That would make a great, you should be a columnist in your local newspaper.
I
That
agree.
would have been a great
I,
little story.
I agree. I agree. It's very profound. It's very profound. Very, very profound. There's so many layers to it. What do you take away from it, Lisa?
Well, the power of self-observation and self-reflection and resolving something like within just a few minutes of time based on something so unlikely to be the reason for that resolution as a brownie. It was obvious. It's kind of like in the opposite direction, like the straw. You hear the straw that broke the camel's back. Well, this was your moment. And the
Yes,
brownie represented the straw, and only it was this really
exactly.
positive resolution.
The straw
Yes.
that made the camel's back.
Yes.
Yeah, to maybe flip it upside down. Yeah. So again, there was, we were talking about supra context, right? Looking at all of them. So Beena was observing herself like we observe those bubbles in the drain. She saw all those little bubbles packed together. And oh, so that overview perspective, that's as a one concept, very close to appropriateness. How can overview perspective not be the perspective of appropriateness? I mean, true capital O overview, capital P perspective, yes, or universal perspective, or God perspective, if you prefer, angel perspective, I don't know, whatever you wish to do, fairy queen perspective, right? It has to be one that is looking at things in the entirety of appropriateness, right? To connect it to one concept, to stay on theme. I always try and connect it to the main column of what's going on, right? So this is the mechanism that enabled Beena to see herself, that because we've been practicing zooming out overview perspective. Yes, makes sense?
Yes.
Yes,
Very powerful, very powerful. And just, you know, I enjoy the writing too, because we get a
yeah.
little
Thanks for sharing. That was beautiful.
yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. I mean, Lisa, do you agree, right? We get the feel of Beena. We get to hear her heart, her humor, her joy, her niceness, her kindness, her consideration, but also her sophistication, her layeredness, her nuance, right? And all of the details that go with it. And I mean, look at that title. This is a ridiculously profound title. It connects you to the ineffable. The
What was
brownie
the title again? The brownie I didn't eat.
I didn't eat, yes, is the one I enjoyed the most.
Yeah, brilliant.
It's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. So
And
as
I
we go,
still miss
okay.
some paragraphs, Sil.
Yes, I know. I was just noticing that. So what we have a lot of fun doing is because we enjoy writing, right? And writing
Yes.
is a big part of doing all these programs. You got to write out your takeaways, write out your
Yes.
repeat backs, your dictionary of power. Well, the extended descriptions, tasks and exercises, a lot of writing. So writing skills are important. And in this, when the first rule of writing that we'd say is write ugly, edit pretty. Yeah.
Yes.
So editing,
Yes.
software can do editing, but software can't write the story. So when it first comes out, I mean, that first draft that we were reading was already an edited draft, but then there was an extra edited one underneath it. So when we do this, as we go further, Lisa, you'll see, when you write something, we'll go through it and edit it together, and it's a great joy. It's a great, great joy. Because in that editing, it's a capital R reading of the story, right? Okay, we fix things here and there a little bit. But there's a lot of extra nuance and extra layeredness and skill added when editing a story, because you got to keep the voice and all of this stuff. So it's a very cool thing to do. It's a very,
Are you
very cool
saying
thing.
that this was a joint effort, this writing,
No,
or was
no,
it
it's
Beena's
no. It's been a story. We jointly go through and do the editing because if you notice there, well, I don't know in the second one, but in the first one, I noticed there was a double space. Now, my eye picks up double spaces. It's a well-trained eye for that, whereas Beena's not so much. So I don't change the story in my editing whatsoever, but I will say, okay, a double space, or, you know, you've got the period, it needs to be inside the quotation marks and silly things like that. And then sometimes too, I might say,
Sometimes he asked me questions. Let me say a bit more about this, because sometimes when I say something in my mind, it is clear and it has good explanation and definition.
yeah,
But of course, it is not clear for the reader because it
correct.
needs a bit more context. So he asked me
Yeah,
questions that, okay, Beena, why you are saying that, and just it is not clear. Okay, when I make it clear, and then he says,
yeah,
why don't you write it? So then we have to, of course. So this
yeah,
is the kind type
yeah,
of editing. It's not only
yeah,
about the grammar part, of course, or the
yeah,
punctuation or the
yeah.
editing in that sense, but the editing in the true sense that
Yep.
he asked me questions to make it clear for the third person,
Yeah,
not
the
just
difference.
clear in my head.
Right.
So, and this is really, really a big deal for writing.
Yeah. In other words, the difference between meaning and saying. Beena
Yes.
always means what she says, but she doesn't always say what she means.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's all writers.
Well, it
That's
was
all writers.
very cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So, by the way, when I'm editing, I am a ridiculously scrupulous editor. I mean, I cannot emphasize truly how scrupulous I am. So the end article may be substantially different to the ugly one, right? But there's no contribution from me as to the content. As a good editor, my job is not to change your content. My job is to make your content or to enhance your content so that your content can be heard according to what you mean. Not what I mean, not what I think is right. No. And so my job is to enhance your expression, not to express on your behalf. Many editors forget this. So I'm crucially scrupulous in this. So that article is 100% Beena. All I did was essentially just make a few little changes here and there so that you could hear more Beena than you might have heard in the first draft, right? And that's just
The
good
proof
editing.
of this is that sometimes I just go through my old stories and my post, and I just come up with like, Sil, you didn't catch this. You were the editor, and you didn't catch that. And then he says that sometimes it's not that he didn't catch that. Actually, he just leave those things, do not completely change or entirely change my things, and he says, okay, yes, it's okay. So it was okay, it was appropriate for that time where I was and how my vocabulary and my expressions skills were. So he just leave that those things as it is, never try to change and prettifying and making it something excellent. No. So that is so important for the editing part. I never feel that he tried to change. When he tried to, he asked me that, Beena, it doesn't make sense. We argue for like for an hour, like keep asking questions, and I no, sorry,
Well,
no, I'm
argue
not
is
going to
not
do
maybe
that.
the right term.
Not
Discuss.
good.
Discuss.
No, and then he keep asking me question to explain myself better, and then
Yeah,
of
Well,
course we can
how
continue.
awesome is that? Mhm.
it is
Sorry.
Very
awesome.
cool.
Exactly.
Oh yes,
Exactly.
it is. It
Yeah.
is. It is.
Yeah. Yeah. So I
Definitely.
want
Okay,
to
you
do this
two.
with your writing, Lisa, as well. Is what I'm saying at some point, right?
Ah,
So we'll do this.
okay.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So
For
we'll
now,
we'll
though, I bid
yeah.
you good
Yes,
morning.
we got to go to yes. Good mornings to you as well, and we're all going to go. So
Yes.
again, see, we don't have fixed times. We just let things run as appropriate. And I wanted to get this point of Lisa's story is connected to this brownie story, right? So just to finish it up before we go. Oh, okay, right. Well, I'll do it for the video anyway, right? Just to tie it together. I ran longer because Beena had a point of importance, a point of like urgency. It had to come out, right? The sharing was necessary to get more clarity, right? And so it's all connected.
It's a
This
process of solidifying the awareness.
exactly. And also you got an opportunity from the brownie story, right? You came to awareness of what you were doing. And this other incident, this pulling you in inadvertently, right? Conscripting
Yes.
you, as it were, coercing you, really.
Yes.
This
Oh
inadvertent
yes.
coercion. It's a capital G gift from the universe to apply the lessons learned in the brownie story. See, it all ties together, right? It's a circle
Yes.
coming together.
Yes.
So this
Yes.
is a big deal. This is a very big deal. That's why I wanted to persist with it. And of course, somebody might say, yeah, but what's this got to do with the capital R reading of the story? It's all under this understanding of one concept. It's all about appropriateness. So anything is appropriate, and also moreness, right? We see the moreness of your story led to the moreness of that incident. All ties together. Yes. So when we look
Yes.
at bubbles and context, you see there's two little in separate bubbles, but they're actually connected. When we see the
Yes.
overview bubble of everything happening in the context of awareness, intent, all of the stuff all fits together. It's profound. It's very, very, very profound. All right. On that note, yes, we are going to leave also. Brilliant, brilliant,
Hi.
brilliant. I love this. I love this. Good morning, Beena. Good morning to you. Bye bye. Bye bye. Bye bye. Oh, too cool.